Chapter 424. A look of shock flashed past Tu Ching's eyes. Even Yin Tu was unable to ignite the desolate bare-bones martial spirit. But the other party was able to do it. It was completely against logic. Ha ha, good. We, the Ursa major martial artists, have never been afraid of anyone. Yin Yonglai laughed out loud. He immediately stopped and said, "Go and prepare." The star power of a constellation was produced by the constellation's circulation and was endless. But if it was used up too much, it would also affect the constellation's circulation, and the star power produced would shrink greatly. The fierce and savage Qi enveloped Fairy City. The light aura of Ursa, major constellation in the sky, suddenly erupted. A thick and solid gold light pillar descended from the sky, enveloping Tang Tian and the rest. Tu Ching's throat felt as though it was blocked by something. Just at that moment, a tall and imposing figure dressed in armor walked into the palace and bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty," Yin Yonglai said coldly. "Other than Commander Tu, the rest stand down." But the most surprising was actually Tang Tian. Tang Tian was like a bottomless pit. Above his head, there was actually an astonishing gold-colored waterfall, like a golden waterfall, frantically entering his body. Yin Yonglai smiled, looking sinister. "Before I slowly grow old, to be able to gamble my life in a battle to the death, the heavens have already treated me well. 10 years of my lifespan, in exchange for this opportunity, it is worth it." Jian Feng Yuan's face revealed a look of ecstasy. The dense star power, to him, was a supreme tonic. Rong Ro, who was beside him, had a complicated expression. He laughed bitterly in his heart. He trained in the inheritance of Ursa major constellation. The pure and surging star power was extremely beneficial to him. But after today, he and Jian Feng Yuan would most likely become the enemies of Ursa major constellation, and the Majesty would definitely not let them go. The gold bone was one of the 3 gold treasures of Ursa major constellation. Desolate bare bone. Ursa major constellation had 3 gold treasures: Head of the King Bear, Desolate bare bone, and Demonic Bear's secret claw. Desolate bare bone was not the strongest, but the most mysterious. Crane Sword was the saint treasure of Heavenly Crane constellation, but it had been sealed for many years. The Heavenly Crane constellation had declined for a long time. The star power had withered. Without nourishment for a long time, it was far from its peak. Right now, it was a great opportunity for it to nourish itself. Ursa major constellation star power was 2 levels higher than Heavenly Grus constellation. What more such dense star power? "Your Majesty," Tu Ching paled in shock. Wu Xia and the rest stopped in their tracks as they stared in disbelief at the pillar of light descending from the sky. The pillar of light was too conspicuous. The entire fairy city could see it. Behind him, astonishing energy fluctuations soared into the sky. Rong Ro finally understood why the desolate barebone was related to the fate of Ursa major constellation. The reason was simple: star power, the vast and astonishing Ursa major constellation star power. The beam of light continued to wash down, forming a dazzling golden circle of light around Tang Tian's 5 zhang radius, enveloping all of them. "All of you shut up. No return without victory." Suddenly, one of the subordinates shouted in horror. The others were stunned for a moment before their expressions changed. "Secret treasure. The power of my secret treasure is weakening." Yin Yonglai shook his head. There will be no more desolate bare bones in the future. However, his body, which he thought was perfect, was extremely fragile in the golden flames. Yin Yonglai bestowed the desolate bare bone to His Highness Yin Tu, who knew. And Ling Su's sheep horn wind bells was a relic of the silver frost mounts in the past and had a long history. But the inheritance of Aries constellation had changed, causing it to be unable to obtain the nourishment of the star power. Such a good opportunity was like a dried-up land greedily absorbing the star power. When they saw Yin Yonglai, it was as though they had seen their last hope, and all of them cried out for help. Tang Tian looked at his palm in a daze. "To her, no matter who it is, I will definitely take revenge for you. Tu Ching's expression congealed. This matter is somewhat strange. Although the desolate bare bone controls a third of the star power, but usually it can only use 1%. Such a scale of star power extraction has never happened before. The words spoken through clenched teeth were filled with killing intent. With regard to the desolate bare bone, there had always been a legend. It was related to the fate of Ursa Major constellation. The legend was vague, and no one knew for sure, and the desolate bare bones aid in battle was the weakest out of the three treasures. The head bear was the saint treasure of Ursa Major constellation, and was held by Bear King Yin Yong Lai, while the demon bear's secret claw was in the hands of the grizzly bear army's commander, Tu Ching. A vast amount of star power erupted without any warning. The pure star power that surged into his body continuously washed through his body, causing his skin to become a faint gold color. The hidden injuries in his body quickly healed, and his cultivation that had been stagnant for many years actually began to stir. Yin Yong Lai squinted his eyes with killing intent. He slowly swept his gaze across everyone. Tu Ching was speechless. He nodded his head, using all his strength to nod. Tu has met with misfortune. Yin Yong Lai's tone was calm. Your Majesty, the treasures in their hands were weakening. Although the degree of weakening was not fast, but they knew what this sign meant. Tu Ching was startled and immediately lost his voice. Don't tell me. Tu Ching's footsteps stopped, mist forming in his eyes. His thin lips pursed tightly. He suddenly raised his head, his gaze resolute, and strode forward. The legend was true. Tu Ching sighed and warmly consoled. Your Majesty, please restrain your grief. Bang! Golden flames spewed out from his body, and his clothes turned into ashes. Ursa Major constellation was already in a mess. The extremely pure star power. Your Majesty. Not good. The commander-in-chief of the grizzly bear army, Tu Ching, when the star power started to fluctuate, he could feel it. He suddenly stood up, his face revealing a look of disbelief. In the next moment, the blood drained from his face, as though he had suddenly aged a lot. In these 3 months, not only will your treasures not weaken, but they will become stronger. Yin Yong Lai's gaze was crazy. Once you launch surprise attack, I will send out an order to mobilize everyone. Take down Orion constellation. Only by taking down Orion constellation can we survive. This battle, there is no victory or defeat, only life or death. If we win, we will have everything. If we lose, we will have nothing. His fists were clenched tightly, his entire body trembling. Everyone looked at each other, but all of them bowed and complied, retreating like a tide. In the blink of an eye, only Yin Yong Lai and Tu Ching were left in the palace. To a constellation, such a result was fatal. The strong became stronger, the weak became weaker. The shrinking of the star power would cause the star treasure of the constellation to enter a period of decline. The weakening of the star power would affect the martial artists of the constellation the most. Their ability to survive would quickly drop, and the strength of the constellation would also drop. Tu Ching's mind trembled and could not help but exclaim, Your Majesty, you cannot. This is its final combustion, Yin Yong Lai said coldly. To be able to make the desolate bare bone burn, I am very curious who has the ability to do so. It was as though he was reborn, and the pain was similar to being reborn. Tang Tian groaned. Similarly, the silver spear in Ling Su's hands, the sheephorn wind bells were like 2 small whirlpools, absorbing the star power with all their might. Tu Ching's face was thin, his gaze as sharp as a sword, his expression solemn, his entire body covered in armor. When he moved, the armor clattered. Everyone felt much more at ease. The 2 most important and strongest people of Ursa Major constellation were there. Even if there was anything difficult, there would definitely be a way. Let's not care about that first. Yin Yong Lai squinted his eyes. We are already at the most dangerous point. Tell the Honorable Martial Alliance to change our plans. We request to immediately attack Orion constellation. Directly attack, and give up on the plan to go around Andromeda constellation. Yin Yong Lai's roar was like the rage of a bear king in the forest, resonating in the palace. All the other sounds disappeared. Everyone kept quiet out of fear. Chaotic footsteps came from outside the palace. Yin Yonglai once again regained his usual resolute self. He turned and walked up the stairs, sitting on the throne. Tu Qing resolutely turned and walked out of the palace. Bang, bang, bang. Tu Qing had roughly guessed it when he came. He had followed Yin Yonglai for many years and could hear the deep sorrow hidden in Yin Yonglai's calm tone. Yin, too, was deeply doted on by Yin Yonglai and was the first successor of Ursa, a major constellation. Compared to Yin, too, the other successors were too lacking. You don't have to worry for me. Yin Yonglai waved his hand and said solemnly, the desolate barebone was once a gold-ranked treasure that had the qualifications to become a saint treasure. Just that because it controls star power, it did not have much of an increase in fighting power. So the Skull King Bear was designated as a saint treasure. 1/3 of Ursa major constellation star power is controlled by it. I gave it to Tuer, was to use the star power to refine his body. Never did I expect. That was star power. This battle you must win. Yin Yonglai stared fiercely at Tu Qing, like a ferocious bear. We do not have time. I can only help you fight for 2 months. The bone in his hand slowly melted in the golden light, transforming into a pool of golden liquid with a speed visible to the naked eye. It seeped into his palm. The cold feeling made him feel indescribably comfortable. It was the extremely pure star power. Your Majesty, it was a vicious cycle. In such a situation, there were only 2 situations that would occur. One was the Saint Treasure's rank dropping. The other was the constellation's star power being greatly depleted, hurting the constellation's foundation. Tang Tian felt as though his body had fallen into a furnace. The golden light aura, bringing with it an astonishing heat, seeped into his skin. A group of people rushed into the basilica like a tide. All of their faces were filled with panic. The sword in Crane's hand was buzzing and trembling, frantically absorbing the golden star power that seemed to be a substance. Tang Tian felt as though he was a piece of metal that was thrown into a furnace. His flesh and blood was continuously being refined. After absorbing the heavenly martial werewolf blood meridian, Tang Tian's fleshly body had become extremely strong. Previously, with Qi Guang and Duan Mu as his sparring partners, the 92% completion rate of the heavenly martial werewolf blood meridian was being absorbed by him at an astonishing speed. His body's quality had improved by leaps and bounds. Regardless of strength or speed, they had all reached an unimaginable level. He even thought that his fleshly body had already reached perfection. Jian Feng Yuan was also absorbing the star power with all his might. Victory, only victory, can make my sacrifice worthwhile. Yin Yonglai's hands pressed on Tu Qing's shoulders, his gaze fanatical. Promise me, you must definitely win. Promise me. But the efficiency of the two, compared to Crane and Ling Su, was far from it. Chapter 425. But to the enemy, they would definitely not feel that it was a pleasure because it meant that this army had an extremely shocking tactical discipline and obedience. There were many factors that determined whether an army was strong or not, but an army that was extremely obedient and disciplined would not be easy to deal with. Honorable Martial Alliance Gold-ranked martial artist, 6 dead and 7 injured, mysterious 6th Division President, fatal strike. Countless of stone powder that was even finer than flour suddenly exploded. Angelina could not dodge in time and was struck by the stone powder. Her entire body was covered with stone powder. But Tang Tian, who had just opened his eyes, saw Angelina's anxious expression and could not help but feel surprised. He had to slowly figure out the matter of his body. For Angelina to be so anxious, he was afraid that something big had happened. The silver, shining battle robes made the Lupus army look like a pool of flowing mercury. The use of the energy room allowed the soldiers of the Lupus army to grow extremely quickly. When had they ever experienced such dense energy? Other than being overjoyed, all of them worked hard. The Lupus army might not have high talent, but in terms of perseverance and hard work, They could be ranked in the top 3 in the entire Heavens Road. His buttocks had not even touched the ground when he heard an extremely loud explosion. A powerful and peerless flow of air rushed into the ground. Angelina was stunned and immediately screamed, "Tang Tian!" Bao Saint Naiyi was a disciple of an aristocratic family, and since young, he had displayed astonishing talent. His teacher was a person who had a high reputation and was hailed as the founder of the curved arrow flow, the Bao Saint Shurjiran. Naiyi inherited his teacher's curved arrow flow and brought it to greater heights, and was bestowed as a saint at the age of 42. The perfectly straight golden light pillar pierced through the blue dome of heaven, connecting the earth and the sky as one. Tang Tian was also stunned. After a while, he opened his mouth, his face flushed red, and stammered. "Chi!" His feet landed on the ground, and his entire foot sank into the ground. Before he could exert any strength, his eyes blurred, and he actually appeared in front of Angelina. 10 men in a small group. Every small group was like a silver shining spear. Their expressions were not the least bit nervous. Riding their horses forward, it looked like they were casually patrolling, but the formation of the group was still extremely outstanding. Tat Dun turned and left, and upon seeing that, the plateau army also turned and left gloomily. The Bao Saint Naya, Tang Tian, was unfamiliar with his own body. Another burst of stone powder. Tang Tian did not know that the desolate bare bone controlled a third of Ursa major constellation's star power. Most of the star power had been absorbed into his body. His meridians and Dantian pool could not contain the purer and more majestic energy, so they were completely destroyed. No one liked this kind of opponent. The plateau army that came to reinforce them also stopped in their tracks. Tatadun looked at the new Lupus army and could not help but be silent. He had been to the Lupus army before and had seen their training. Only he could truly see the improvement of the army. The surrounding golden light dimmed bit by bit until it disappeared. At this moment, a hidden passageway surfaced. No one had thought that there would actually be such a concealed waterway that led to Orion constellation's hinterland. The Grizzly Bear Army's performance was worth the huge expenditure of the Honorable Martial Alliance. After getting rid of the Hunting Spear Army, the Grizzly Bear Army did not stop. Together with the Honorable Martial Alliance's gold-ranked martial artists, they rushed towards Orion constellation. But the star power is truly too much. He raised his leg and walked towards Angelina. When the news was released, it shocked Heaven's Road. Pa! It was the first saint to appear in the war. Everything within his field of vision seemed to be distorted by this terrifying energy fluctuation. The majestic and vast star power brought along the unique, savage, and tyrannical aura of Ursa major constellation, pervaded out. The energy undulation in the air was so intense that it was like the waves of the sea battering everyone's mind. The Grizzly Bear Army's lightning-fast advance, sweeping everything before them. It was natural for women to love beauty. Such a battered and exhausted appearance caused Angelina to instinctively scream. But her temperament had improved greatly, and she quickly reacted to it and shut her mouth. The true power in her body trembled, and the stone powder was swept away. Although her strength was not high, but such a small matter, she could still do it. Andromeda Battle Gown. That is our Andromeda Battle Gown. At that moment, the Grizzly Bear Army and the Honorable Martial Alliance formed an alliance army and were directly aiming at Orion Constellation Palace. Orion Constellation's second army, Hunting Blade Army, was too far away to quench their thirst, and the third army, Flute's Hunting Net Army, was currently stationed at the Andromeda Orion star door and was even further away. When Tang Yi's Lupus army appeared in everyone's vision, all the people hiding in the shadows immediately quietened down. Tang Yi's eyes were slightly closed, his gaze slowly sweeping across the surroundings. Those with weaker willpower all subconsciously turned their heads. Wait a minute. But at that moment, no one cared about Tang Tian. Tang Tian immediately apologized. He anxiously wanted to pull his leg out, but who knew that his left leg would directly sink into the stone floor. It was an improvement in all aspects. The exclamations and praises of the crowd were incessant, and the expressions of those who were hiding in the dark all changed slightly. The Andromeda battlegown had always received the attention of the other constellations, but no one knew how effective it was. So when a Lupus army appeared, it gave everyone a huge visual impact, causing many of them to be startled and speechless. Tang Tian was at a loss. Heaven's Road was in an uproar. Even if the Andromeda battlegown was first given to the Plateau army, they would definitely not be as outstanding as the Lupus army. Everyone was waiting for the result of the battle. The Dantian pool had disappeared, the meridians had disappeared, the blood, flesh, tendons, and bones had changed beyond recognition. The entire Andromeda city was in an uproar. Everyone jumped onto the roofs, and the stronger martial artists directly soared into the sky. The surprised people were all discussing intensely. All of their faces were filled with shock and awe. Neat. It was so neat that it was pleasing to the eyes. 3 days ago, Ursa Major Constellation suddenly joined hands with the Honorable Martial Alliance and launched a surprise attack on Orion Constellation. Without any preparation, Orion Constellation's #1 army, the Hunting Spear Army, suffered a devastating blow. Under Tu Qing's lead, the Grizzly Bear Army obtained an unprecedented victory, especially when Ursa Major Constellation had clearly chosen to join the Honorable Martial Alliance. It was the first constellation to publicly announce that they had joined the Honorable Martial Alliance's camp. And after that, Bear King Yin Yong Lai sent out an order to mobilize all the martial artists of Ursa Major Constellation towards Orion Constellation. Angelina, who was just clean, had once again become a stone powder person. Angelina was dumbstruck. So beautiful. How could a saint die? The other end of the passage was not in Ursa Major Constellation. For the battle, the Honorable Martial Alliance did not hesitate to use the large teleportation star door and brought the Grizzly Bear Army over, spending an astonishing amount of money. Seeing that he was about to crash into Angelina, Tang Tian jumped in fright. He anxiously tiptoed with his right leg, wanting to forcefully stop himself from rushing forward. Cough about that. My stomach is not too good. His right leg was like a sharp steel drill, effortlessly piercing into the tofu deep to his knee. Every corner of his body was brimming with extremely pure energy. That's right, not true power, but energy. Tang Tian reacted. The extremely pure energy was the star power of Ursa Major Constellation. Tang Tian was dumbstruck. He definitely did not do it on purpose. But the situation in front of him, his own body, how did it become like that? Let's go. We don't need help here. It was like a sturdy rock. To bite it, one had to be prepared to lose a few teeth. I'm sorry. All the pores on his body expanded, greedily absorbing every drop of energy around him. The stone floor immediately shattered, and an even bigger stone powder exploded out. The pitiful Angelina was once again splashed head-on. Tang Tian's, but was deeply embedded in the ground. The sturdy stone floor looked as though it was made of flour. Tang Tian's current position was extremely strange. He was squatting on the ground, his butt half hanging in the air. Below his butt was a deep hemisphere-shaped stone pit. Until today, they had finally met with trouble. Everyone was at a loss. Tang Tian suddenly turned pale with fright. His body had suddenly become so foreign. When everyone's gaze landed on the Lupus army, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. On the third day, Tang Tian slowly opened his eyes. In his eyes, there was a faint gold color. The world in his eyes had become completely different. His body was like a part of heaven and earth, one with the heaven and earth. Your Majesty, that's too powerful. Ta Dun's underlings did not say anything. In truth, inside the Plateau army, there were many people who were unhappy with Angelina giving the Andromeda battle robes to the Lupus army. But after personally witnessing the Lupus army style, everyone did not say anything. They were not rookies, the standard of the opponent's army. They could still see. Time slowly passed. At the same time, a golden bear head formed on Tang Tian's back. Fairy City was also in a mess. The sudden increase in strength, the brand-new battle robes, caused the Lupus army's mental state to be extremely outstanding. Forget it, I better stay in the pit and listen to Angelina first. In any constellation, the position of a saint was extremely high, to the point that they would even ignore the orders of the master of the constellation. Orion constellation had 3 saints, and the only one who served the master of Orion was only one, and that was the Bao Saint Nai. How could it be like this? Tang Tian gave up struggling and just sat down. The Bao Saint has fallen. Every piece of news caused Heaven's Road to sink into panic and restlessness. Even a saint had fallen. Such an intense battle. It had been too long since they had seen it. In everyone's hearts, saints were undying bodies. They were all strong martial artists that would never lose. Chi, Orion constellation, was in danger. Chi, ZZZ, the heavenly martial werewolf head imprint on Tang Tian's back continued to shrink until it was the size of a fist. It followed along Tang Tian's spine, slowly moving down until it reached the bottom of his tailbone, then stopped moving. Ursa Major constellation was a tyrant. Compared to the 10 equatorial palace halls, they were not inferior. Orion constellation was even more so, one of the 10 equatorial palace halls' strongest constellations. The clash between the 2 powerful constellations would have a deep impact on the situation in Heaven's Road. Chapter 426. That's too fast. Tang Tian was dumbstruck. A constellation's destruction was actually so fast. Furthermore, it was not a small constellation like Lupus constellation, but an equatorial palace hall grade constellation. Angelina was angered by Tang Tian's expression, her face turning cold. Don't tell me Mr. Little Tang plans to sit here and wait for death? Don't tell me Mr. Little Tang thinks that you can stay out of this? Tang Tian did not dare to move. I also do not know if I have entered or not. Ling Su was slightly irritated by Tang Tian's questions. Don't you find it annoying? I will stab him to death. Angelina opened her mouth, but realized that she did not know how to refute. That's right. Even Yin too dyed his hands. Such a person. How could he be a simple-minded brute? No. Tang Tian straightforwardly interrupted Adrian's words. He continued, although I am not smart and can be stupid at times, but I know who I can trust. Little Crane is a good person. Little Su Su is a violent maniac. What does it matter? I could trust him with my back. You are nothing. I will not trust you, no matter how beautiful your words are. It has nothing to do with me. Crane's face darkened, his hand holding onto the hilt of his sword. Ling Su's face was filled with killing intent, staring at Adrian. Am I really that unlucky? Did I really meet an idiot? That means as strong as you. You also need to listen to others? Adrian raised his eyebrows. Angelina almost scolded him. I said so much, just to wait for you to say very good, very reasonable. Tang Tian nodded his head, a look of approval. That's reasonable. This old man is going to be unlucky. Are you for real? Tang Tian's face was filled with disbelief. Crane said coldly, let me do it. He cannot see the danger in it, right? We need to think of a countermeasure. Angelina said, if Ursa Major constellation really wins, then we are finished. They will definitely turn around and deal with us. They will definitely not let their backs have a nail. If they fuse 2 constellations, they will give birth to an ecliptic palace grade super constellation. We won't be able to stop them. Compared to him, Tang Tian was far inferior. Angelina stared blankly for a moment before she smiled and said, Mr. Little Tang is too modest. Young Mr. Tang might not know, but this victory of yours has affected the entire situation in Heaven's Road. Me? Tang Tian was flabbergasted. His expression was as though he had heard a funny question. Ta Dun waved his hand and signaled for the scout to retreat. Don't worry too much. You have to believe in his abilities. Angelina looked at Tang Tian expectantly. She was waiting for Tang Tian to come up with some useful plan. In any case, Tang Tian had built such a huge foundation. Such a person shouldn't be an idiot, right? Angelina had been through so many dangerous situations, but not once had she been so dumbfounded. However, in any case, she managed to squeeze out a smile. Crane, who was at the side, hesitated for a moment, then reminded him, "Crazy Tang, a captive also has dignity. As a righteous martial artist, you can kill him, but you cannot humiliate him." Tang Tian grabbed Adrian with one hand, looked at him, and said seriously, "I heard that hunters are always cunning. I'm a straightforward person, not smart at all." Ling Su glanced at him and said, "You are a crazy young man." Adrian ignored Crane and Ling Su's killing intent. "You are right. But for such a crucial decision, if you are not careful, everything you have will go down the drain. Will you hand it over to someone else?" Angelina saw Tang Tian's stupefied expression and was slightly disappointed. She suddenly thought of the mysterious man. He was always so confident, always so indifferent, as if nothing could stop him. If he was here, he would definitely have a way. Tang Tian and Ling Su revealed a shocked expression. Little Crane was angry. Tang Tian was stared at for a long time and was puzzled. "Is there a flower on my face? I think what you said is very good and reasonable. Go on." Tang Tian was startled. He did not expect Angelina to turn and leave. When Angelina was far away, he then reacted and mumbled, "I can't think of anything, but someone else can. You can listen to me finish my plan." Adrian was very calm. Tot Dun laughed out loud. "Some people are addicted to pretending to be pigs to eat tigers. This shows that he is very scheming. Think about it. Until now, when did he make a mistake? Even Yin Tu died in his hands. Don't forget, he has the nickname of Honorable Grindstone. If this kind of person is stupid, then what kind of person is smart?" Tang Tian's face revealed an impatient expression. "People like you have too many thoughts. It is very annoying. It is very simple. I believe in them. I believe that they are smarter than me and could do better than me. My duty is to fight hard, and protect everyone. I understand what you mean, but I'm not the strongest person, and they are not the smartest people. On what basis will we win? Whether we lose or win, we are all in the same boat. What is there to complain about? Oh, right, what we are after is our victory, and not the kind of victory that you are talking about. You don't understand." She resisted the urge to scold, stared at Tang Tian, and said word by word, "Don't you have any ideas to break out of this situation?" Tang Tian laughed and said proudly, "You think too highly of me. Do you think I'm a person who can use my brain? Things that use my brain, of course, should be left to the smart people." Adrian was calm, but his tone was full of temptation. "Don't you want to have a stronger constellation? I have a way for you to obtain Ursa Major Constellation. That is the rich Ursa Major Constellation. Compared to Andromeda Constellation and Lupus Constellation, it is many times stronger. It is right in front of you." Angelina shook off the stone powder on her body and acted as though nothing had happened, and said with a smile, "Seems like Mr. Little Tang's strength has improved greatly. Believe in his strength?" Angelina, who had calmed down, had an evil fire burning in her heart. He is an idiot. When I ask him what to do, he seems to think that it has nothing to do with him. Seeing his expression, I am furious. "Crane." Tang Tian looked at Adrian with a weird face. "Your way of thinking is so weird. What kind of person can do anything? Why don't you listen to others? Are you the smartest person in the world?" Adrian looked at Tang Tian as though it was his first time meeting Tang Tian. Tang Tian turned his head and shouted, "Who has tape? Seal this guy's mouth. He is so annoying." Angelina kept the smile on her face and became serious. "Mr. Little Tang might not know, but we do have some information channels in Ursa Major Constellation. Desolate Bare Bone is one of the 3 gold star treasures of Ursa Major Constellation, and it controls close to a third of Ursa Major Constellation's star power. The star power of Ursa Major Constellation has already started to dry up. Just 3 days ago, Yin Yong Lai used 10 years of his lifespan to activate the Saint Treasure of Ursa Major Constellation, Skull King Bear, mobilizing the remaining star power of Ursa Major Constellation, causing the might of the Ursa Major Constellation star treasure to increase instead. Similarly, 3 days ago, Tu Ching led the Grizzly Bear Army, with the help of the Honorable Martial Alliance, to launch a surprise attack on Orion Constellation, and annihilate Orion Constellation's first army. Today, we have just received news. Crooked Arrow St. Naiye was killed by the Honorable Martial Alliance, and the Allied army is heading straight for Orion Palace. Regardless of the outcome of the battle, Ursa Major Constellation will wither due to the depletion of star power. To say that your battle changed the situation of Heaven's Road is not a lie. You are afraid that I will frame you, but you can listen to my plan first. You can think about it carefully. Adrian said unwillingly. What surprised him was that Tang Tian stared at him. Shut up. A captive must have the awareness of a captive. Crane and Ling Su are already awake. They have followed the Lupus army back to Wolf Stronghold. No problem. Tang Tian then asked Ling Su, Little Suzy, did I humiliate him? Tang Tian struggled to get up from the stone floor and walked towards Tang with one step at a time. Angelina felt weird. She did not know where her father's confidence in Tang Tian came from. Seeing that Angelina was about to speak, Tai Dun consoled her. Relax, they will definitely make a move. A person who does not even put the Honorable Martial Alliance in his eyes, how can he tolerate a mere Ursa Major Constellation? Tang Tian shook his head like a rattle drum. I can't think of anything. Back at Wolf Stronghold, Adrian, who had been silent the entire time, suddenly spoke up. Master Tang Tian, I have a way to solve Andromeda Constellation's current predicament. I am truly stupid to actually talk about such a problem with these two idiots. The three of them stopped and turned to look at Adrian. Back at the Fairy Palace, Angelina quickly calmed down. Thinking about her performance today, she was somewhat regretful. Her ability to control her emotions was truly lacking. Tang Tian turned and asked Ling Su, Little Suzy, am I a righteous martial artist? Then what do we do? Angelina could not help but ask. Tang Tian was dumbstruck. After a while, he reacted and stammered, That means Ursa Major Constellation is finished? Furthermore, Ursa Major Constellation, no matter what, it cannot be described as merely. Tang Tian, can't you see? You guys are already in danger. If you are not careful, you will be consigned to eternal damnation. How can Ursa Major Constellation let you guys go? Once they swallow Orion Constellation, you guys will be their first target. Yes. Angelina's expression congealed and nodded her head. Yin Yong Lai and the rest's only hope is before Ursa Major Constellation falls, to forcefully attack and occupy Orion Constellation and seize the Saint Treasure of Orion Constellation and merge the two constellations. From the looks of it, they have a high possibility of achieving it. They are currently less than 300 li away from Orion Constellation. Regardless if it is the Hunting Blade Army or Leo Constellation, they will not be able to save them in time. Adrian's words were interrupted because he was pulled over by Tang Tian's hand. Angelina did not expect Tang Tian to be so shameless, and without saying a word, she turned and left. Wait and see. Tai Dun was calm. Our own strength is too small and cannot do anything. We can only rely on them. Whatever they need us to do, we will do. From our previous interactions, they're not hard to talk to and not greedy. Chapter 427. This brat. Is there something wrong with his brain? Inside the meeting room, the atmosphere was as heavy as lead. This completely went against the basic laws of martial arts. The Wolf Stronghold was already more or less completed. As it was a purely military stronghold, it did not need to be big and was much simpler to build. The rest were all minor details. Stepping straight fist. His past experiences told him when those geniuses were doing stupid things, do not disturb them. Tang Tian got more excited as he fought. He did not need to worry about his legs or his control of his power. All sorts of martial techniques flowed like water, continuously changing in his hands. The reason why low-level martial techniques were low-level, other than its power being smaller, and its changes being simpler, the most important point was because of the understanding and usage of true power, which was at a relatively low level. Bing's expression suddenly froze. He opened his eyes wide and stared in disbelief at the shallow pit beneath Tang Tian's feet. Bing frowned. He looked carefully, and finally he understood. Blade Saint Shouda. Holding back his laughter was truly a test of skill. Bing forced himself to endure. Come, let me see your current strength. He turned and left. Since he could not give any good suggestions, then he would let the weird young lad freely display his skills. Who knows, he might be able to create something weird? Belle understood Bing's meaning, but her investigation of Ursa Major Constellation had spent a lot of effort, so she spoke clearly. Ursa Major Constellation strongest is their grizzly bear army, but they are currently in Ursa Major Constellation. There are no starry doors or waterways between Ursa Major Constellation and Orion Constellation. Yin Yonglai had already sent out the order to mobilize all the martial artists of Ursa Major Constellation and are currently rushing towards Orion Constellation. This is a good opportunity. Adrian and the rest. Tang Tian threw them to Little Crane. Tang Tian thought sinisterly, I wonder how Little Crane will torture them. I really want to see. Everyone was dumbstruck. They already knew how strong a saint was, but after hearing Belle's narration, they realized that the saint was much stronger than they had imagined. At the place where Tang Tian waved his fist, a transparent ripple appeared. It was a phenomenon formed by the extreme compression of the air. Such ripples soldiers were seen many times. Any martial artist with a bit of strength could unleash such a fist. But Tang Tian's fist actually did not have any true power undulations. Belle had a weird feeling. Could it be that Uncle Bing thought they had a chance of winning? She wanted to say something, but seeing Bing's serious expression, she could not help but nod her head. Only one saint. Shouta does not have any friends, and the battle happened too suddenly. Ursa Major Constellation could not have prepared in advance. These words were like a clap of thunder in everyone's ears, causing them to feel suffocated. Bing was secretly shocked. Tang Tian had absorbed the heavenly martial werewolf blood meridian and had many mystical abilities, but the strength of his body was definitely not at such a tyrannical level. Unknowingly, he had already cultivated so many martial skills. Every time he used a martial technique, it felt completely different from usual. His body was filled with energy, and any martial technique would be extremely powerful. When he activated the spiraling force, even the air around his body started to spin at a high speed. Bing's expression was calm as he stood up. Bing returned to Three Spirit City, found Pai Pa, Tang Cho, and Belle, and explained the situation of Andromeda Constellation. All the familiar transformations were the Fire Scythe Ghost Claw, the Spiraling Force, the Thousand Cleave Demonic Hand, and other martial techniques transformations. The crazy young man was actually trying to merge these high-level martial techniques transformations into his fundamental martial techniques. There was no end to the weirdos. Tang Tian was excited. His fists were like the wind, the most simple, fundamental fist technique, but in his hands, its power was astonishing. Bing had a misconception, as though the training grounds was a hurricane. He was far away, but the berserk airflow blew him to the point that he could not open his eyes. Here? Tang Tian looked around. Seeing that there was nothing, he shouted, "Then I'm coming." If Tang Tian was still weak, he would definitely let Tang Tian walk the path of a mechanical martial artist. The appearance of the mechanical spirit weapon redefined the profession. Its apex was raised greatly, and its future was limitless. But just like any new thing, its development and growth would inevitably require the continuous accumulation of time. At the current stage, the mechanical martial artist's high-level fighting power was far from other professions. But obviously, he did not have the time. Belle's face congealed. Tang Tian is a genius. And I actually have such a terrifying thought. Understood, dismissed. Fire Scythe Ghost Claw, Thousand Cleave, Demonic Hand, Spiraling Force. Saint level. But, for some reason, he had a feeling of obstruction. Out of all the martial techniques, only when he was using the fundamental martial techniques did he not feel any obstruction. Tang Tian was still repeatedly using the fundamental martial techniques, and his fundamental martial techniques started to show some transformations. These transformations, Bing felt familiar, as though he had seen it before, but he could not remember where. Tang Tian took a step forward, the sole of his foot sinking deep into the bronze ground, an astonishing flow of air spreading out. The bronze ground in a radius of 10 m around him all sunk a few inches, forming a circular shallow pit. This fellow, what kind of freak is he? He was stunned and looked at Tang Tian as though he had seen a ghost. But Tang Tian was doing the impossible. Bing's first reaction was to remind Tang Tian, but he quickly calmed down. He had been an instructor for a long time and had rich experience in grooming new people. For example, the training in the past. Bing never personally told Tang Tian what he should do, because he knew very well that his way of doing things was already outdated. So he provided Tang Tian with difficult situations and let Tang Tian ponder and comprehend on his own. If you don't believe me, you can ask Crane, Bing said calmly. Bing felt as though his brain was being squeezed by the door. Bing felt that it was inconceivable. Everyone who fused martial techniques would follow a basic principle, and that was to use high-level martial techniques as the main, low-level martial techniques as support. He had never heard of anyone who would fuse high-level martial techniques with low-level martial techniques. Although Xiao De and Yin Yonglai's political views were not on the same page, but their relationship was not as bad as what the outside world thought. Yin Yonglai had once wanted to send Yin Tu to Xiao De to learn blade techniques, but in the end, Yin Tu was not interested in blade techniques, so he gave up. At such a crucial moment, Xiao De will definitely help. A third of the Ursa major constellation's star power cleansing. This fellow, his life is too good. Really, Tang Tian's eyes were filled with suspicion. Bing was already waiting for him at the 07 Army barracks. Seeing Tang Tian's expression, he could not help but exclaim, "Interesting, this is really interesting. I have been an instructor for so many years, but I have never seen such a weird existence. Little Tang Tang, I have to admit, you are the most weird person in the world." Tang Tian immediately smiled and said proudly, "Ha ha, Uncle, you finally saw through the godlike young man's true nature. He does not walk the normal path. You are absolutely right. I like this, the godlike young man is a weirdo. Very weird." Tang Tian subconsciously stopped. Tang Tian was extremely careful along the way, afraid that he would sink into the ground again. Now that he could finally unleash his full potential, he was extremely excited. The airflow in the training grounds was smashed into pieces. It was extremely chaotic. The sharp airflow left marks on the bronze ground, but Tang Tian's figure was not affected at all. He was like a huge hammer. Everywhere he went, the airflow would be smashed. He was now like an inflated balloon. The star power in his body was so full that he had a feeling that he could explode anytime. Among the people, the only one who maintained his calm was Bing. The advantage of the mechanical martial artist now was the army. Bing looked at Bell and asked seriously, "Only one saint?" This was also why high-level martial techniques could absorb the advantages of low-level martial techniques. It was not uncommon. But for low-level martial techniques to absorb the essence of high-level martial techniques, it was impossible. Belle raised a finger. Her expression congealed. Xiao De and Yin Yonglai's relationship is not shallow. The two of them were childhood friends, but as the two of them grew up, their temperaments gradually became incompatible. Yin Yonglai was ambitious, but Xiao De was extremely indifferent. He had always lived in seclusion in the Sky Bear Mountain Range. And after Yin Yonglai took control of Ursa Major constellation, he invited Xiao De a few times, but was rejected by Xiao De. Yin Yonglai was enraged, and his army pressured the border. Who knew that Xiao De would suddenly appear? And with one blade, he sliced through the Sky Bear Mountain Range, and the Nulon River flowed in reverse, blocking the army, and no one crossed the river. That was Ursa Major constellation's famous drinking blade river. Weird? What do you mean? Tang Tian's face was filled with caution. It was not easy for Uncle Bing to say nice things. He had been through hundreds of battles, and all those battles were something that the current generation of martial artists could not imagine. A saint would not even cause his determination to waver. These two words seemed to be filled with an unparalleled power. "Oh, it means not walking the normal path," Bing said seriously. Bing did not understand fundamental martial techniques. After a while, he gradually saw some signs. She picked up the tea on the table, drank it in one gulp, and continued. Yin Yong Lai combusted his vitality, used the king bear head to maintain the star power of Ursa Major constellation, and no longer has the strength to fight. The only one that can threaten us in Ursa Major constellation is only one person. Fundamental martial techniques. This thought flashed past Bing's mind, and he secretly shook his head. It had been a long time since he awoke, and in these few years, he had always been greedily absorbing everything in this era. Many of the thoughts that were vague or even wrong in the past were gradually becoming clear. We need to attack Ursa Major constellation. Tang Xiao's attitude was the most resolute. Ursa Major constellation is now at the edge of the cliff. If we do not take the chance to give them a kick and push them down the cliff, then we will be in trouble later on. The training grounds of a 07 Army barracks was paved with bronze flooring. With a thickness of half a meter, it was extremely sturdy, and when blades and swords slashed on it, only sparks would fly. The heavy and gigantic mechanical weapons, when running, sprinting, colliding, were unable to damage it in the slightest. Tang Tian just took one step. Bing's gaze looked at Belle. That's right, the relationship between us and Ursa Major constellation is simply irreconcilable. We have no other choice. Pai Pa also agreed with Tang Xiao's opinion. He punched out bang. The clear and loud explosive sound shocked Bing. After a while, he once again punched out fundamental fist techniques. Sure enough, that feeling of obstruction had disappeared. Every move and every style was executed with ease. Such a pity, such a powerful physique. If he became a mechanical martial artist, how strong would he be? Chapter 428. Looking down from the sky, the huge Sky Martial Wolf Academy seemed to be boiling. Countless of mechanical spirit weapons surged out from every corner. They ran crazily on the ground, one after another. Their heavy bronze feet brought up mud, causing the ground to tremble. Above their heads, one after another, bronze figures flew past the roofs and treetops. Amaury shouted for half a day, but seeing that no one cared about him, he became unhappy. Hey, don't tell me you guys don't want to show off your new abilities? Don't want to? Really don't want to? Why don't you want to? The students of Sky Martial Wolf Academy, after training every day, had to soak in the ice pool for an hour. The ice pool quickly became the scariest place in the entire academy. But the majority of the students were like, all in, although the ice pool was scary, but everyone was willing to endure it. They adeptly drilled into the mechanical spirit weapons, activating the mechanical spirit weapons. Sima Xiangshan snorted, but did not refute. Liang Qiu was right. Sima Xiangshan said faintly, if Jing Hao is here, then it will be exciting. That is truly shocking. Bing's tone was filled with shock. I never thought that you would actually be able to come up with such a weird martial technique. Congratulations, you finally found your own path. It's truly an extraordinary path. Fundamental martial techniques. I'm looking forward to it. Have you heard? Master Bing is back. Bing nodded his head seriously. Very powerful. But no one has ever walked this path before. You can only find it yourself. Even though he was clear, the current him was just an incomplete spirit general. Not to mention at his peak, even Tang Tian had already started to surpass him. Wahaha. At the crucial moment, I still need a lively martial man to be able to turn the situation around. Amaury shouted while running. He bent his thick and sturdy arms. Sky Martial Wolf Academy. But once he had made a decision, Bing did not hesitate. He went to the barracks training grounds, where Tang Tian was still immersed in his own weird creation. Bing observed for a moment, did not disturb him, and quietly left. You need more actual combat experience. The creation of any martial technique, in addition to creative thinking, also requires continuous tempering in actual combat. Only by constantly fighting with experts will your understanding of martial skills continue to deepen. Nurturing war with war. This is a method that will always be useful. Bing looked at Tang Tian, who was nodding his head, and smiled. Are you interested to challenge a saint? The murderous order reverberated in the sky, and everyone in the courtyard could hear it. Liang Qiu shook his head. He must have his own ideas. Compared to war, We are the amateurs. Master's really amazing. Good heavens, to force Ursa major constellation to this stage. However, everyone couldn't help but look forward to it. After the last battle with Yi Zhao Gu, they had all improved to varying degrees. After that, Bing used many of the results from the Blood Meridian's laboratory on the four of them, and the four of them could clearly feel that their strength had an obvious increase. Maybe I can make a suggestion, Bing said. He was born for war. Aluin finished his training for the day. He dragged his exhausted body and jumped into the ice pool. The ice pool was extremely cold, with a layer of beautiful ice crystals floating on it. The ice crystals were the size of a fist. Like crystals, when the sun shone on it, it would refract beautiful light auras, but it did not give off any feeling of warmth. Liang Xiu looked at the time and said, "We need to increase our speed. For this battle, everyone must not be careless. Our opponents are all very powerful people." Suddenly, a student rushed to the young man in the corner who had his eyes closed and shouted, "Shua!" All the students in the ice pool turned to look. Aluin could not help but look over. Xiao Wu was an extremely special student. It was said that he was Kongda's subordinate in the past, and Kongda's inheritance, Silver Moon, was passed down to him. "Xiao Wu, didn't Master Bing find you for a trip?" Reveal some inside information. Tang Tian was startled, and then his gaze exploded. Just at that moment, a sharp alarm suddenly sounded out. All the students in the ice pool were startled, and in the next moment, all of them rushed out of the pool at the same time. They did not care about wiping off the ice water on their bodies, and all took out their own mechanical spirit weapons from the Aquarius Marshal Cabinet. "Will we be mobilizing?" Tang Tian raised his head and looked at Bing, his face filled with anticipation. Although Bing had never guided him on his martial techniques, but he was always able to provide some reliable methods. "Shut up," Han Bingning said coldly, her hand on the hilt of her sword. "Bang!" Liang Xiu frowned. "Don't make things difficult for him. Jinghao's teacher is still in the Honorable Martial Alliance. How could he directly fight with the Honorable Martial Alliance?" Tang Tian's eyes lit up like the stars. He was excited and regretful at the same time. No matter what, he was one of the few big shots of the Southern Cross Army in the past. Although the others always bullied him because of his good temper, but he was still someone who killed his way through mountains of blades and seas of blood. How many saints had died under the hands of the army? He had long forgotten, but he did not have any fear in his heart. He clenched his teeth and persevered. The ice pool was of great help to their blood meridian's purification and true power increase. Attention all students. Attention all students. Poker Face actually wants to bring that group of brats to the battlefield. I really don't understand. Sima Xiangshan said to himself. In that period of time, he followed Tang Tian. The comfortable life made him feel at a loss. But now, he was even more comfortable like a fish in water. Yes, Tang Tian's expression became serious. I still have many things that I have not thought through clearly. Not far away, a few students were chatting, attracting Aluin's attention. Aluin listened quietly. The news of Ursa, major constellation sneak attacking Orion constellation, spread to the academy, causing an uproar. Sky Marshal Wolf Academy was a military general academy, and discussing the current situation was the students' favorite. Although everyone's current standard was not high, but did not hinder everyone's passion. Leaping into the ice pool, Aluin quivered, his pupils involuntarily dilated, his mind momentarily blanking out. After a while, he gradually regained his senses, the bone-piercing cold intent eroding his state of mind. All of the students' eyes lit up, although Xiao Wu said it in a secretive manner, but the information he revealed made everyone have more thoughts. No one cared about him. Out of all of them, Sima Xiangshan was the most afraid of Han Bingning. If she did not say anything, she would unsheath her sword. Clapping sounds came out from outside the dust. Tang Tian regained his senses. He raised his palm. It was a simple, fundamental palm technique. His palm suddenly produced an astonishing suction force. The dust that filled the air immediately swept away, forming a bamboo basket-sized bronze ball in his hand. The half-a-meter-thick floor of the training grounds suddenly shattered. The bronze dust that was even finer than flour, like a demonic green cloud, rose up. The dust floated to a distance of 3 m away from Tang Tian, as though it had met with a transparent barrier. It was unable to move an inch. Every time that happened, he would think of the commander. Even his smoking posture would unconsciously imitate the commander. Saint rank was not enough to make Bing feel fear. When he had just woken up, Bing was not used to it. In his life, fighting was the only topic. When he was at the front lines, the moment he opened his eyes, he would be prepared for the day of killing. After becoming the chief instructor, the daily topic was still to teach the recruits how to fight, how to kill the enemy. Tang Tian retracted his fists, his gaze clear. Because he was an old soldier, the flames of war had long sharpened his mental state to be extremely tenacious. The battles that he had experienced were the most bitter and cruel, the largest scale battles in the past 10,000 years. There was nothing else that could compare. How could an old soldier who had gone through such a baptism feel fear towards a saint? The heavenly martial werewolf seal that they were training in had Xiao Wu's credit. The bronze torrent was gathering. The four of them could not help but be in a daze. They would never have thought that one day they would grow to such a stage. Silver Moon, Heaven Hook, and Feudal Marshal were the 3 strongest inheritances of Lupus constellation. Heaven Hook and Feudal Marshal were in the hands of the master. Xiao Wu's Silver Moon completed the last piece of the puzzle. On the desert, a few figures flew quickly. He could not be as heroic as the commander, who looked at the heroes of the world as if they were dogs, but he had his own strong points. For example, he was more proficient in training troops and was calmer and more meticulous. He smoked. The flickering flame reflected the lingering smoke, his poker face that had some vicissitudes of life. The cigarette was left behind from the barracks, the commander's favorite. In the past, Bing never smoked, but unknowingly from when, smoking made his state of mind calm down. Even though he was equally clear, the discovery of the martial technique system had reached its peak, and the current saints, compared to them at that time, were probably much stronger. For such a battle, if it was the commander, he would immediately lead his troops to attack, because in the eyes of the commander, a saint was nothing. And Bing would first gather everyone's opinions, because he knew his own strength was not as good as the commander and needed to be more cautious. The time he had spent in the world was too short. Even if he had always been frantically absorbing everything around him, he was still not as familiar as Belle, and Pai Pa Xiao Wu was quiet for a moment, then suddenly said, "Everyone will know very soon." Still, no one cared about him. It truly made people look forward to it. Definitely. Is Master the kind of person to swallow his anger? Ursa Major constellation dares to find trouble with Master. They are really hopeless. I just feel that he is not straightforward enough, Sima Xiangshan said faintly. Since he has already left the Honorable Martial Alliance, if he does not take the chance to stab him a few times, it would be a pity. Complete the gathering of the armed forces in 10 minutes. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. Tang Tian was taken aback. Uncle Bing rarely praised someone so instinctively. He immediately felt an indescribable comfort in his body and beamed with joy. Uncle also feel that it's very powerful? I don't know why, but I feel that using fundamental martial techniques is the best, the most comfortable, so I thought of this method, and now it seems that it is feasible. Ha! Godlike young lad, you are so powerful. Pa. Master Bing had always looked up to Xiao Wu and admired him. No one was too jealous when Kongda died. Only Xiao Wu had the courage to follow him. Such a loyal person, no matter where he was worthy of respect. Chapter 429. Ling Su's fingers were numb, the qi and blood in his body were boiling, and a few of his meridians started to crack. Dong! The spear tip lit up with a faint light aura. The sheep-horn wind bells that had absorbed a large amount of star power started to reveal faint patterns. All of these patterns were extremely intricate and complicated, revealing a faint silver light. At that moment, it started to undulate, bringing forth a faint silver halo, faintly discernible, like clouds or clouds. His silver hair fluttered. The young man's orange pupils blazed without any fear. Ling Su's spear shot out like rain. When the soil touched the spear auras, it immediately shattered. Damn it! Ling Su's heart was burning with rage. Although he knew the opponent was a saint, although he knew the opponent was stronger than him, although he knew it was normal for him to be at a disadvantage, he and Flamingo lost their strength, and along with the soil that flew into the sky, they fell to the ground. Crane's gaze was cold. The crane sword in his hand lit up with a gentle light aura. "Your blade saint is here," Crane said indifferently. His gaze was looking far away. In mid-air, without any support, Crane's left leg retreated. Both of his legs bent, his body crouched down. He retracted his elbow and pushed out a perfect thrust from his sword technique. Ling Su had already used up all of his strength, but Xiao seemed to know what he was thinking. The palm blade in his hand continued to slash continuously. The terrifying power contained in the spear tip was actually disappearing bit by bit. Xiao's every movement was so clear, so natural, and he even had a smile on his face. Ling Su looked at him with disdain and spat out 2 words, "Coward." But at that moment, he could no longer change. "Are we really going to be the vanguard?" Tang Tian's face was twisted. This change came without any warning, and in such a short period of time, there was such a strong contrast, causing Ling Su's face to change. He felt that it was extremely weird, like a wild beast's roar. The true power in his body was like thunder. The faint spear aura suddenly exploded with light aura, bringing along a lingering silver halo, like a beautiful comet. It struck into Xiaoda's ferocious blade aura. Since it is like that, then it will not change. Xiaoda's slash was extremely natural, without the slightest hint of a fiery aura. Even the smile on his face did not change at all. It was still casual and relaxed. This slash was filled with an indescribable beauty, causing Tang Tian and Crane to be in a daze. "Sorry for the long wait." Xiao cupped his hands and spoke with a warm and amiable tone, causing others to be unable to help but have a good impression of him. "Hello, uncle." Tang Tian greeted him politely. "Kill." Only now did the 3 of them clearly see Xiao's appearance. He had a thin appearance, wore a navy blue gown, and seemed refined and composed. Moreover, he emanated a tranquil and indifferent aura. He looked like a teacher in an academy, without the slightest sharpness. Instead, he exuded a scholarly aura. "Little brother, you're really impatient." Xiao smiled with interest. He sized up Ling Su and nodded. This must be little brother Ling Su. Rumor has it that little brother Ling Su inherited the Silver Frost Spear. "Seeing you today, you are indeed extraordinary. So powerful." A look of madness surfaced on Ling Su's face. He was originally not a person who could adapt to changes. Xiao's extremely contrasting slash, although it made him feel weird to the point that he wanted to vomit blood, but he did not have any thoughts of adapting to it. Xiao's casual change was something that he could not do. But why was he not satisfied? Crane respectfully returned the greeting. Junior Crane greets Elder Xiao. With just a casual palm blade, it caused my meridians to be injured. Is this a saint rank? Am I going to die? There was no astonishing explosion. It was as light as the spring breeze. Little Su's original intention had never changed. But it was more courageous than before, more determined than before, and more persistent than before. The blade slashed down. An indescribable light aura blossomed in front of Ling Su. If there was nowhere to dodge, then don't dodge. Ling Su only felt that the spear tip was empty. It was as though he had accumulated all his strength, but swung it in the air. That feeling was so unbearable that he wanted to vomit blood. Crane's gaze swept across the surroundings. The area around a starry door had already been fortified, and there was not a single person left alive. It was obvious that Yin Yonglai had long predicted that they would attack. He might as well empty the area and use it as a battlefield. Xiao's face revealed a look of surprise. Ling Su's strength was much more outstanding than what he had imagined. It had been a long time since he had met a young man who could counterattack on the second move. Ling Su's hands became light. He lost control of his silver spear. It transformed into a silver light, and flew to the side. The spear aura that was about to hit Ling Su trembled slightly. Then he heard a wong sound. It was as though a heavy hammer was swung in the air. The sound of the wind caused his skin to go numb. Suddenly, the space in front of him darkened. A confident and agile black figure blocked in front of him. The silver spear tip was transparent like a crystal. There were layers of silver halos lingering around it. The palm blade that was like a cool breeze flowing through the mountains suddenly became a strong and fierce heavy blade breaking technique. Ling Su was indifferent. The silver spear in his hand pointed straight at Xiaoda. "Let's fight. Stop talking nonsense." The transparent spear tip brought along a ray of light and entered the blade aura that was covered in frost. In Ling Su's eyes, this slash did not have any sense of beauty. It was a simple and plain slash, but it made him feel that there was nowhere to hide. Even the palm aura that was released was not sharp. It was like a cool breeze flowing through the mountains. There was no sense of danger. The low and deep sound that was like a heavy drum swept out with a terrifying wave of qi. There was no beautiful light, but it was filled with danger. All of Ling Su's attention was attracted by this blade. Even the sky behind Xiao De was about to be split into two by this blade. But aren't the vanguards just small characters? Tang Tian's face was unhappy. He waved his arms. He shouted, "A godlike young man should appear like a hero at the end. Only then will he look more impressive." A figure appeared on the horizon. The sunlight elongated his shadow. He walked leisurely. His expression was calm, but his speed was extremely fast. He was just a small black dot. In the blink of an eye, he was right in front of him. If that was the case, it meant that Xiaoda was not far away. He clamped Flamingo tightly with both of his legs. Flamingo's long bent legs suddenly exploded with an astonishing power. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he shot into the sky. The transparent spear tip was about to collide with the silver fish-like blade auras. The silver light of a sheep horn wind bells suddenly exploded. The blade auras were dyed with frost. The dangerous and concentrated blade auras stopped for a short moment. Flamingo and Ling Su were like steel rods that were fiercely nailed into the ground. The powerful force caused the ground around him to shatter into countless of pieces. It was as though an invisible hand had thrown the pieces into the sky. Crane exposed a charming smile. "Please do not overestimate your own position. It will bring a lot of trouble to everyone." Before he finished speaking, he bent his right arm. His palm was like a blade as he slashed down. Xiaoda's eyes lit up. He could not help but praise Crane. He smiled. His palm blade slashed on a Ling Su's spear tip. No matter how he changed, he was stabbed to death. But Ling Su could only watch as the transparent spear tip slowly regained its silver color. The light aura dimmed down bit by bit. Seeing the even more concentrated blade auras, Ling Su's eyes flashed a look of fanaticism. "Teacher, please look at little Su's improvement." Like a silver rain, it shot into the sky. Ling Su's face changed. He had long known of the strength of a saint, but recently his strength had increased explosively. Tang Tian was not the only one who had benefited from Ursa major constellation. His strength, unknowingly, had reached another peak. He firmly believed that with his current strength, although he was unable to challenge a saint, but he had the strength to retaliate. Xiaoda's praise came from above. The mud in the sky covered the sky. Ling Su was shrouded in shadow. He raised his head and looked for Xiaoda with all his might. The crane sword's light aura exploded. It was as though the sword aura enveloped him, reflecting Crane's handsome but calm face. "Persevere in the heart. Do not move." "Good." Ling Su's orange eyes suddenly lit up with a blazing light aura. On the back of the bird, he suddenly lowered his body. His back arched, like a fierce tiger pouncing on its prey. The 5 fingers on his right hand that was holding onto the spear was completely relaxed. He gently rubbed it. The light aura came quickly and left even faster. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared. "Chi!" Xiaoda's palm blade slashed onto the spear tip. It was soft and powerless. Ling Su squinted his eyes. He did not have the intention to bow. His killing intense sword. "Who will go first?" "Teacher." I have never forgotten Justice Origin Core Pierce. Shouted / caused Ling Su to feel as though a bucket of ice water was poured over his head. The arrogance in his heart was immediately swept away. There was only one way he could do it. Crane turned his head. He was surprised. Don't tell me you don't want to rush to the front. Good spear technique. Shouted looked down. Beneath his feet were countless silver auras. They were densely packed like a vast ocean. He laughed. He bent his elbow and formed a palm. His palm was like a blade. He slashed down. "Ha!" Tang Tian said unhappily. "Hey, you two have no ambition. This godlike young lad came to this world to be a hero. Oh, speaking of which, it is weird. Where's Shouda? Why haven't we met? We have already been in Ursa, major constellation, for 3 days. Is there anyone who is a blade saint like this? That is too irresponsible. As expected of a silver frost young lad. You are fearless and unyielding." Shouda laughed. "Then let this old man experience the wind of silver frost." The silver spear spun out. Like a silver snake coming out of its hole. It was as fast as lightning. Even if the opponent was a saint, he was not satisfied. This blade brought forth countless of fine silver blade auras. Under the setting sun, they dazzled with layers of light auras. Like countless of silver fishes, they chased after Shouda's palm blade. The fine blade auras tore through the air, causing Shouda's figure to become blurry. But when he faced Shouda's casual slash, he realized that the difference between him and a saint was not just the difference in true power. In terms of understanding martial techniques, the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Ling Su, who had straightened his state of mind, calmed down his originally restless heart. The spear auras that filled the sky like a sea of stars suddenly drew out countless of dazzling straight light scars that entered Ling Su's spear tip. Shouda's smile that was not a smile was extremely piercing to Ling Su. Shouda's palm blade was raised again. A terrifying energy ripple spread out from his palm blade. The smile on Shouda's face disappeared. His expression was solemn. Chapter 430. Your Majesty, are you trying to tell us that we have no other way out? Saint rank. This is a saint rank, and it is my first time challenging a saint rank. So excited. Tang Tian did not care at all. He looked at Shouda with a fanatical gaze. For Crane to be able to receive that blade, his strength was definitely not weak. Such a fast fist. Such a heavy fist. Wait a minute. Tang Tian suddenly jumped out. He rubbed his fists. Hey, the two of you have made your move. I have not challenged anyone yet. Whether or not Oda can block them, I'm suddenly not sure. Yin Yonglai looked far away and muttered to himself, Tang Tian's strength and the strength of his subordinates, I actually do not know. And at this time, the opponent is giving me a fatal strike from behind. How can I not lose? The grizzly bear army roared. The shock in his heart was not fake. The blade hand he used just now had the intention to kill and did not hold back. Who knew that Crane would actually receive it, causing him to be surprised. At his level of strength, there was not much difference between having a blade and not having a blade. Oh, then I can rest easy. Yin Yonglai's face revealed warmth. Although Ada usually has many opinions about me and does not fight with anger, but he will definitely not leave me in the lurch. Master Xiao is overpraising me. Crane was neither servile nor overbearing. Where is Aze? Yin Yonglai suddenly asked. Duff could only speak the truth. Orion Constellation's other saint Rankly Dai also appeared in the Orion Palace. He caused us to suffer heavy casualties. Yin Yonglai laughed. You should be happy for me. As a leader, to be able to die in such a manner in my own palace, compared to dying on my bed, is many times better. Shouda's gaze swept across the three of them, his heart filled with admiration, and said, If the three of you are willing to accompany this old man to sit here and chat for a month, this old man is willing to gift you with my cultivation experience, although it is shallow, but I believe it will be of help to the three of you. You are already so old, but still so competitive, to the point that you can even throw away your life. Xiao sighed. I never thought that I would not be able to save your life. Since that's the case, I'll use the heads of these three brats as a sacrifice to you. The transparent ripples in the air exploded in front of Shauda. Shauda instantly made a judgment. Tu Ching stared blankly at the bright Ursa Major constellation in the sky, his tears flowing uncontrollably. Yin Yonglai mumbled to himself, Li Dang is an open and honest man. He used his life to exchange for that favor. He is a real man. A sharp air turbulence swept past Shauda's face. Tang Tian shouted. He suddenly exerted strength in his legs and pounced directly at Shauda. The king bear head above his head suddenly lit up with a dazzling light. The dazzling light pillar shot up into the sky, straight into the horizon. Bang, bang, bang. Shauda's gaze became indifferent. You three, come at me together. The more Duff listened, the sadder he felt. He couldn't help but cry. Then why doesn't your majesty come with us? Go to Orion constellation and make a comeback. Shauda squinted his eyes again. Basic fist technique. It's not that easy. Yin Yonglai's old face became serious. Tang Tian and the rest will definitely see this opportunity. They will definitely take action against us. If we do not have a path of retreat, how can they? Everyone looked at the sky in a daze. They all understood what it meant. It was the burning of a constellation. It meant that the constellation master was giving up his life. The Saint Treasure was giving up his martial spirit to ignite the entire constellation. Shauda's mood was extremely bad. He looked at Tang Tian with a gaze filled with killing intent. Your Majesty, are you trying to tell us that even if you have to burn your life, you will still win? A strand of hair on his forehead was split into two. Shauda retreated. It was the first time in the battle that Shauda retreated. Your Majesty, victory will definitely belong to you. Your Majesty, are you trying to tell us that you will fight alongside us? Duff endured the pain in his heart and said respectfully, Tang Tian and the other two have already entered Ursa Major constellation. Today, they will meet Mr. Shauda. Duff stood by the side. Looking at the Majesty, his heart was sour. Out of all the King Bear martial artists, he was the weakest. It was never his turn to guard the Majesty. But the other King Bear martial artists were all sent out by the Majesty to stop Andromeda constellation. Only him, the weakest, was left by the Majesty's side. Your Majesty, the situation has not deteriorated to such a state. Duff advised bitterly. Just at that moment, a light pillar suddenly shot into the sky. Shauda's entire body trembled. He turned his head to look. According to the schedule, tomorrow morning, the first batch of martial artists will be able to step into Orion constellation. Duff immediately said, the Star Door entrance is controlled by the Honorable Martial Alliance, but the position of the Star Door is at least 20 days away from Orion Palace. I'm here. Ha ha. Is the Lion King finally unable to endure it anymore? Yin Yonglai's muddy eyes lit up with a strange light aura. To be able to make the Lion King personally speak, it truly makes me look forward to it. Li Dang had received Lei Ang's favor in the past. Today, he is just returning the favor. Duff's respect for the Majesty came from the bottom of his heart. The spacious palace was silent. On that day, Orion Palace was breached. The Ursa Major constellation above them would burn for a full 3 months. And in these 3 months, the power of Ursa Major constellation star treasures would increase greatly. The great general has already led his army to surround Orion Palace, but the opponent's resistance is extremely tenacious. The Grizzly Bear army is unable to display their strength. The Honorable Martial Alliance is also attacking with all their might, and both sides have suffered heavy casualties. And Duff's face revealed hesitation. Tu Ching stopped. He raised his head. The Ursa Major constellation above him suddenly lit up, and a faint light regiment floated down like snowflakes. The light auras landed into their star treasures. The king was dead. Both sides who were in the midst of fighting stopped at the same time. Duff immediately said, Your Majesty is wise. With Mr. Shauda here, Tang Tian and the rest will definitely not be able to advance. In his eyes, Tang Tian's fist force was filled with flaws, but... Stand up. Yin Yonglai's tone was calm. You guys might not have the chance to return to Ursa Major constellation. Tang Tian is an unfathomable person. Until now, I still do not know how he was able to obtain the star power from the desolate barebone. Now that I think about it, the only mistake I made was that I did not expect that Andromeda constellation would actually have such a ferocious beast hibernating. What surprised him was that His Majesty was not too surprised, but instead released a carefree smile. Yin Yonglai shook his head. I need to stay in this palace and stabilize the star power. Without the star power, everyone will crumble now. Halfway through, Tang Tian gathered all his strength and raised his fist. A series of compressed air ripples chased after him, exploding out densely, creating a sound. He suddenly asked, how long more before our first batch of martial artists can enter Orion constellation? Crane shook his head. Thank you, Master Xiao. I am not blessed, and am unable to accept it. Xiao's face revealed a look of surprise. It is rumored that although Prince Crane has never trained in the Empress Absolute Arts, but in the Crane sex martial techniques, his attainments are extremely profound. Seeing you today, you truly live up to your reputation. Your Majesty. Duff's tears fell like rain. Duff did not dare make a sound. Suddenly, Xiao's gaze congealed. His Majesty already had the intention to entrust him. Could it be? Bang! Yin Yonglai acted as though he did not hear anything, and continued, wild beasts will definitely explode and hurt people. Just now, I suddenly realized we have underestimated others. Even my previous arrangements were underestimating them. You bring Aze and go find Commander Tuesday. As long as Commander 2 is able to take down the palace, then Orion Constellation will be in the bag. Orion Constellation's position is special. With Aze's ability, he will definitely not be able to hold it. But the Honorable Martial Alliance will definitely not sit and watch. They will definitely continue to support, and adding Commander 2's ability, with that, we will be able to stand firm. Orion Palace. Kill. Yin Ze was the second successor, but compared to Yin 2, regardless of whether it was breadth of mind or strength, he was lacking and was not favored by Yin Yonglai. Duff was shocked. Your Majesty. On the throne, Yin Yonglai was in a daze. In a short few days, his hair had turned snow white, wrinkles crawled all over his face, and even his eyes had become muddy. Duff had personally seen His Majesty grow old day by day. For the sake of stabilizing Ursa, a major constellation star power, His Majesty did not hesitate to burn his lifespan. Who would have thought that the old man on the throne was the one who had led Ursa major constellation to develop to the point of being comparable to the equatorial Palace Hall constellations, the brave and unyielding Bear King, who is famous in Heaven's Road. I hope they can stop the Lupus army. Yin Yonglai nodded his head. But the crux of the battle is Commander Tuesday. The earlier we take down Orion constellation, the earlier we can hold the advantage. Do you have any reports from the great general? Duff immediately replied. Prince Zhe is actively preparing for battle. Yin Yonglai's fingers that were holding onto the throne moved, as though he had awoken from a dream. Duff, is there any news? Duff was extremely confident. With the few masters here, there will definitely not be a problem. Xiaoda's face sunk. This old man is just appreciating talents, and does not wish for all of you to die here. Xiaoda's heart trembled. The simple and clean fundamental fist technique, under the astonishing frequency of attacks, actually caused him to continue to retreat. Tu Ching roared, kill. Crane's palm heated up, and the crane sword almost flew out of his hand, only stabilizing himself after flying out for 70 m. Crane's heart was overwhelmed with shock. Until now, Xiaoda had not even taken out his blade, and was actually able to cause them to be in such a difficult situation. Yin Yonglai snorted. With his standard, what's the use? Xiaoda's eyes suddenly squinted. Tang Tian's charge was the most simple fundamental footwork, but his speed was extremely fast. No, the speed was definitely faster than the fundamental footwork. Tu Ching wiped his tears. The demon bear's secret claw in his hand was raised up high. The iron-blooded general's gaze was as firm as steel. Yin Yonglai's expression became solemn, and said unhappily, "And what?" Yin Yonglai slowly stood up, his tone sonorous, his white hair fluttering in the wind. I want to tell the martial artists of Ursa, a major constellation, although I am unable to invite another saint for them. But I, Yin Yong Lai, am their king, and will forever fight alongside them, forever die in front of them. Yin Yong Lai suddenly said, "You bring Aze, follow the nearest batch of martial artists, and go find Commander 2 at Orion Constellation." Such a fast frequency. At the same time, his eyes squinted again, and his figure retreated again. Chapter 431. Xiao was startled. He was very familiar with Tang Tian's appearance. Many martial artists would suddenly become excited during battles due to special reasons, such as life and death situations or when their families were threatened. At such times, martial artists would usually perform beyond their abilities. That was 1/3 of the Ursa major constellation's star power. Even Xiao did not want to take that punch. It was not easy for him to grab hold of the opportunity, but little Su had snatched it first. Tang Tian had to use a Herculean effort to suppress his restless heart. Xiao was a saint. His understanding of martial techniques and control of rhythm were unimaginable to non-saint martial artists. Even a small detail in a battle was enough for him to win, not to mention Tang Tian's obvious signs. It was simply like a torrential storm. Although Tang Tian's moves were fast, he had too many flaws. As long as Xiao could grab hold of any flaw in a short period of time, he was 100% confident that he could turn the situation around. Every move of his was integrated into heaven and earth. It was full of beauty and mystery. It made his opponent kneel down and feel despair. Saint level. Even a saint was forced to take a few steps back. Tang Tian's moves were full of flaws. Xiao had thousands of ways to counter them, but Tang Tian was moving too fast. He did not think at all and completely ignored his opponent's moves. No matter what, I must use my martial arts to kill this bastard. A gush of hot blood rushed to his head. Tang Tian was extremely excited. Xiao gritted his teeth. Next move. Just one move, and you'll be dead. Every time they collided, the airflow formed was filled with terrifying power. If it was any other martial artist, they would have dodged it. But Tang Tian did not feel it. Astral power surged around him, and the shockingly powerful air currents didn't hurt him at all. Bang, bang, bang. His eyes were red and murderous. That gaze looked like it wanted to tear him apart. Therefore, when the opportunity appeared in front of him, Tang Tian, who had been impatient for a long time, pounced at Xiao like a ferocious tiger that had been released from its cage. But as Tang Tian's fanaticism disappeared, Xiao's experience and understanding of martial skills quickly displayed a great power. But in comparison, Tang Tian was much slower. Retreat, retreat, retreat again. Saint level, come here to sharpen my martial skills. Lost? Xiao was stunned. By the time Tang Tian reacted, Xiao had already taken a few steps back. Then let's gang up on him again. Xiao's own attack was already quite fast. The palm knife that he had used to chop the tip of Ling Su's spear had been executed in an extremely short period of time. He had continuously chopped from different angles and with different strength. It could be said to be perfect. Crane continued to stare blankly. Ah, that's right. This is an illusion. Ling Su's gaze was dull as he muttered to himself. We must be in an illusion created by Xiao. He wants to use this illusion to lure us in. Just thinking about it made him tremble. Tang Tian's eyes turned red. His blood was boiling. It was as though he had been injected with chicken blood. He was completely immersed in an unprecedented fanaticism. As for the weakness of his shallow techniques and weak power, to Tang Tian, it was not a problem. The current Tang Tian had the star power in his body surging. Even a normal punch would be extremely powerful. Furthermore, this fellow's physical body was also tyrannical to the point that Xiao was jealous. As for whether Xiao could receive it, he did not even think about it. A saint-level martial artist could not receive his techniques? What kind of joke was that? Although Tang Tian was full of confidence, he was very clear that he was definitely not a match for a saint-level martial artist. Tang Tian's speed decreased because he was gradually getting out of the fanaticism. His mind was gradually cooling down. On the other hand, Xiao's true power was greatly depleted. Hence, the speed of his techniques naturally slowed down. Their ears were not the only ones that were numb. Both of their scalps were numb. They stared blankly at the scene in front of them. No matter how they looked at it, they could not accept it. His heart was extremely weird. There is actually someone in this world who would try something that defied common sense. Very quickly, Xiao understood a little. Fundamental martial techniques were extremely shallow. To a normal martial artist, they naturally did not have much value. But its moves were simple enough, and when it attacked, it was much faster than other moves. Furthermore, it was a fellow that was terrifyingly proficient in fundamental martial techniques, so its speed would reach an extremely shocking level. The concentrated and terrifying sounds of collisions were like hundreds of firecrackers being lit at the same time. It shook Crane and Ling Su's ears to the point of numbness. Xiao De, who was enraged, was already prepared to counterattack. Crane also made his move. Tang Tian seemed to be able to see the back view of his great future. Such an opportunity was something that he dreamed of. Tang Tian's fundamental martial techniques were filled with flaws. Even a unique martial technique like Thousand Cleave Demonic Hand in front of Xiao De had obvious flaws. Needless to say, Tang Tian was torturing himself. It could be said that the fundamental martial techniques were riddled with holes. Tang Tian did not give Xiao De time to think. The surging star power in his body caused him to be filled with endless energy. Without thinking, he used his incomplete fundamental martial techniques without thinking. Tang Tian, who did not have the slightest bit of pressure, did not even look at Xiao De's intention to make a move, and used all the fundamental martial techniques that he had been tossing and turning in a mess. Xiao De felt that he was going crazy. No matter what, he had to enjoy himself first. But nothing had happened. Using an unreasonable method of attack, he was like a scoundrel. Everything, all the mysteries, all the beauty, were stirred up into a foul atmosphere, stirred up into pieces. Xiao De's true power was strong. But no matter how strong he was not as strong as 1/3 of the Ursa Major constellation's star power. Initially, he ignored it, but as the battle became more intense, his true power was quickly depleting, and he had no choice but to dodge. He hated and loathed this kind of behavior. But compared to Tang Tian's attack, it was still slower by a beat. All these factors added up to create such a freak and created such a weird situation. But it was these fundamental martial techniques that were riddled with holes that forced a saint-level martial artist to continuously retreat. Tang Tian suddenly jumped back and raised both his hands. Because of one point, which was Tang Tian's attack frequency, until his hair was cut, Xiao De suddenly realized, and a trace of anger rose in his heart. He was a saint-level martial artist. Ordinary martial artists were like ants to him. Although he looked at the three of them differently because of their talents, but it was only because he valued the younger generation. In Xiao De's heart, he did not put the three of them in the same position as him. With a howl, Tang Tian pounced toward Xiao De like a wolf or a tiger. This brat, exactly how many times did he train in fundamental martial techniques? Xiao De, who started to dodge, the frequency of his slashes immediately showed an obvious decrease. So comfortable. As expected of a saint-level martial artist, there were too many high-level martial techniques inside, and he had just touched the doorstep and was still far from being able to completely fuse them. Tang Tian did not have the slightest bit of fear because Xiao De was a saint-level martial artist. On the contrary, he was too excited. Glory! Counterattack! This young man could not be any stronger. Stop! If Xiao De knew what Tang Tian was thinking, he would definitely have a mouthful of blood rushing to his throat. Xiao De thought for a long time, and thought of a more suitable description. This crazy young man actually suppressed Xiao De, but this asshole. Both of their attack speed dropped at the same time. Just as he was about to make his move, Tang Tian, who was in front of him, screamed, his aura exploding. Xiao De was, after all, a saint-level martial artist. His eyes were shrewd and sharp, and not something a normal martial artist could compare to. To be able to be like a torrential storm without a head or a tail, it was definitely not something that could be done without a brain. The most crucial point was that Tang Tian had an astonishing level of familiarity with fundamental martial techniques. an extremely terrifying level of familiarity. Tang Tian did not feel any pain, but Shadow was not so good. Tang Tian's fundamental martial techniques were already beyond recognition. Under the attacks of the torrential storm, Shaoda moved around crazily, the palm blade in his hand slashing at an astonishing speed. At this time, all the changes were meaningless. The only requirement for the slashes was speed. But Tang Tian's explosive increase in aura, it did not make sense. Hey, he was half a beat too slow. Shaoda's heart was extremely shocked. He had seen all kinds of strong martial artists, but he had never seen anyone who would spend time and energy on fundamental martial techniques. Crane was also in a daze. Ah, yes. The reason why Shaoda was being suppressed so badly was because of the fanatical Tang Tian. The increase in the frequency of his attacks was extremely astonishing. The originally terrifying frequency had reached a terrifying number, a number that Shaoda had never seen before. Tang Tian's completely unreasonable attacks, adding the surging star power, caused Shaoda's martial techniques to be useless, and he was dragged to the point where he could only compete with Tang Tian in speed. He had a stomach full of anger. The saint-level martial artist on him, he could not remember the last time he was in such a difficult situation. Every battle, he would firmly control the rhythm of the battle. Everything between heaven and earth was under his control. Even the dust in the air was firmly under his control. What made him feel even weirder was, in front of such a weird, fundamental martial technique, he actually kept on retreating. The surging star power in Tang Tian's body was definitely not a joke. That terrifying energy undulation, even he was absolutely fearful. Tang Tian, who was like a ferocious tiger, completely fell into a demonic barrier. He felt that every drop of blood in his body was burning. The fundamental martial techniques that had already fused into his bones became faster and faster. The attacks became fiercer and fiercer. Shaoda kept on retreating. Tang Tian's fundamental martial techniques were truly too different. With his eyesight, he could see that within the fundamental martial techniques, there were high-level techniques, and could even deduce what Tang Tian was trying to do. Ling Su continued to be in a daze. So scary. How could this brat become even faster? What exactly happened? Shaoda immediately realized his chance had come. Tang Tian did not know what the two of them were thinking. He was too comfortable, much more comfortable than training alone in the training grounds. Every time they collided, Tang Tian would feel the star power in his body heating up as though he was being massaged. Chapter 432. The two of them immediately felt relieved. Crane lowered his head to look. The crane sword in his hand was trembling intensely. A warm and gentle energy entered Crane's body from the sword hilt. After a few seconds, he then reacted, his eyes open wide. Not fighting anymore? We are fighting to the death, okay? Am I going to retaliate? I am being ignored. Who is the saint? He thought about his father who died young, thought about his mother's sorrow, thought about the loneliness of his childhood. Suddenly, his palms became extremely hot, as though he was holding onto a red-hot iron. Welcome to my spirit domain, Silent Blade Lake. The blade light slashed. This made everyone feel danger. As though it had sensed Crane's thoughts, the crane sword's light aura suddenly exploded. The sword cry pierced through the air, a gust of wind blew, and the calm lake immediately started to ripple. Shaoda felt that he was about to explode. Ever since he was young, he had fought countless of times, but none of the battles were as ridiculous as this one, and made him even angrier. Wait a minute, what did this fellow just say? A clear cry of a crane resonated in Crane's heart, straight to the clouds. Your light aura must be very dazzling, right? Ling Su also lowered his voice. Then what? To leave it hanging like this, it's even more disrespectful. It was the first time Crane felt such a strong sense of death, even though the opponent only raised the blade slightly. It was as though his world had suddenly lost all the sunlight, and the extreme negative emotions spread in his heart. Like a nimble and sharp black crane, as fast as lightning, he pecked out with his beak. The blade hilt was blue like a gem, and the blade body was covered in silver light. It was so exquisite that there were no flaws. Ling Su's eyes lit up. He could smell a familiar smell. Previously, he did not understand what the faint smell was in his spear technique. But now he understood that was the smell of the spirit domain. Suddenly, he felt that all the hard work that he had put in all these years was meaningless. I want to take on everything. I want to fulfill my father's unfulfilled wish. I want to tell the world, I am his son, and not the Empress nephew. What would the complete, sacred saint galaxy look like? I am really looking forward to it. The sound of the collision seemed to resound directly in Ling Su's heart. An astonishing power came from the tip of the spear. He held onto the spear body tightly. The spear body and his palms were violently rubbing against each other, causing his skin to be lacerated and his flesh to be mangled. The terrifying true power entered his meridians, causing Ling Su to groan, but he opened his mouth. It was as if he had suddenly discovered that the goal he had been yearning for was no longer so unreachable. Unknowingly, he had already grown to a level that he had never dared to imagine before. The huge force caused Ling Su and Flamingo's bodies to directly fly out. Sadness, loneliness, failure, and disappointment flooded him like a tide. Crane's face twitched and said softly, "That's not good, right? Aren't you disrespecting me? I'm still a saint." Crane nodded his head. "That's true." Although the two of them lowered their voices, Xiaoda's hearing was very powerful. He heard every single word. His face was ashen and his lungs were about to explode. His fists unconsciously clenched. Xiaoda's tone was indifferent. No one could tell if he was happy or angry. It was as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. Crane's body trembled. He stared at the crane sword in his hand. The crane sword was releasing a dazzling light aura. The sword body was trembling. An astonishing fighting intent was emitted from the sword body. The corners of his mouth curled into a heartfelt smile. "How can I give up so easily? Even if you're a blade saint. Let's not fight anymore. I thought of a problem. I need to think about it. You find Little Crane and Ling Su to fight for a while. Wait for me to think it through. We will continue. Which one of you can help me?" Tang Tian shouted. He immediately sat down and ignored Xiaoda. Voila, voila. The heavenly crane sword principle appeared in his mind. Crane's gaze was clear. He held onto his sword and stood proudly. His loose martial attire fluttered without any wind. His aura was at its peak. The wind gathered around him. Like a crane's wings, it lifted his body up. He was extremely light. Crane quietly opened up his 5 fingers. The wind swept past his fingers, bringing with it a warm and moist air. "You were once a saint sword. Are you so eager to fight?" Pa pa pa. A long and slender palm held onto the transparent blue blade hilt. The blade was raised upwards. A silver blade floated in front of Xiaoda. Xiaoda looked at Tang Tian in a daze. His mind could not process what was happening. Following the trembling sound from the sword body, Crane slid forward. He welcomed the silver blue blade aura that was filled with death chi. He thrusted his sword forward. "My blade has been nurtured in the still blade lake for close to 10 years. Today, I can see the light of day again. I hope that you will not disappoint me." A clear cry of a crane suddenly came out from the sword body. "I never thought that I would open up the spirit domain again. It was actually because of the 3 of you." Shout aside. "Seems like I have not improved much these few years." The silver spear pierced out with an astonishing rotation. Ling Su felt that the world had quietened down. His face was emotionless. Like a silver rainstorm, the silver fishes jumped out of the lake and pounced toward Xiaoda. Every silver fish turned into a silver scale as soon as they flew out of the water. Tens of thousands of silver scales merged into one. Ling Su and Crane were stunned by Tang Tian's sudden call for them to stop. But the two of them understood Tang Tian very well. Thinking about it, they felt that such a ridiculous thing, if it was a crazy young man, it was possible. Xiaoda was stunned by Tang Tian's sudden call for them to stop. The silver blue blade aura was dyed with a layer of silver frost. Xiaoda's eyes widened. This layer of silver frost. Below Xiaoda's feet, the lake suddenly lit up with a silver light. It was a large group of silver, shining little fishes. The number of little fishes was astonishing. It looked like a group of silver monsters wriggling in the water. His heart was filled with joy. A ray of silver and blue intersecting blade aura quietly clashed with Ling Su's silver spear. Tang Tian sat in his original position in a daze. He did not move an inch. The expression on his face changed from time to time. Sometimes he frowned. Sometimes he clenched his teeth. All sorts of weird expressions would change from time to time. He had decided in his heart that he would definitely kill all three assholes. Seeing the three of them, the killing intent in his chest surged. Even Crane, whom he always thought to be polite and cultured, had a repulsive look on his face. How could he allow anyone to behave atrociously in his spirit domain? Xiaoda was surprised. He did not expect that the two of them would actually break through at the same time. But at that moment, his aura was at its peak. Forget about the two rascals breaking through. Even if other saints came, he would not be afraid. The brat in front of him had become even more dangerous. Let me teach you how to show respect to a saint rank. The Blue Origin Lake was strangely quiet. Even the wind in the air had a calming power. Xiaoda floated in the air. His expression had regained its tranquility. The sheephorn wind bells jumped up and clashed with the blade aura. Xiaoda's voice was like a gentle breeze that brushed past their ears. Ling Su and Crane suddenly realized that they were above a blue lake. The blue lake water was sparkling and translucent like a gem. When a gentle breeze brushed past, the surface of the lake started to ripple. Colorful fishes could be seen swimming happily in the lake. Even the water plants at the bottom of the lake could be seen clearly. This was the spirit domain, hailed as the strongest foundation of a saint. Every saint would have their own unique spirit domain. His eyes widened in anger. He roared like thunder. Summoning his last bit of strength, his badly mutilated palm suddenly released strength, and the spear body trembled. Just that. In that moment, Ling Su and Crane's hair all stood. Cool. They slowly rose out of the water, the silver light shining so brightly that it was hard to open one's eyes. It was as though there was a voice in his heart that kept on saying, "Forget it. After this blade, your world will end. To you, all of this has no meaning. You are destined to be a nobody." He was completely unaware of the changes in the outside world. That's right. You are still fighting alongside me. Crane's gaze regained its clarity. Everything seemed to be in his control. Ding, Ling Su said, "Go, let's have a good time first. When a crazy young man wakes up, he won't be in our hands anymore." The blade was 7 feet long, covered with fine and dense scales, bringing with it an arc that caused people's hearts to palpitate. But what was surprising was that it did not have a handle. Just at that moment, Xiaoda extended his hand and gently guided. A blue pillar of water flew out from the lake and landed at the end of the blade, forming a handle. At the crucial moment of life and death, Ling Su calmed down. Flamingo suddenly moved, drawing an afterimage in the air. Ling Su, who was on the back of Flamingo, all the true power in his body, surged to the maximum. His attention was unprecedentedly focused. Flamingo sprinted with all its might. Every undulation, the subtle friction between his fingers and the spear, the rotation of the silver spear. He took a deep breath, regaining his calmness, his eyes filled with a bone-chilling intent. Crane's eyes flashed with a light aura. Many things that he did not understand suddenly became clear. In front of his sword Dao, all the fog that was bothering him was swept clean. The current him was still unable to form his own spirit domain, but he knew that as long as he persevered, one day he would form his own spirit domain. Ling Su subconsciously tightened his grip on the silver spear in his hand. Xiaoda, who was in front of him, was not aggressive at all. He was calm and collected, but it caused Ling Su to be even more cautious. Crane's gaze was filled with splendor. He knew more than Ling Su and had a deeper understanding of Xiaoda's changes. If we were to say that Xiaoda previously had the demeanor of an immortal with an indifferent temperament, then the current Xiaoda did not have much of a human aura on him. A sparkling and translucent blue expanded out from Xiaoda's feet, and at the same time, the surrounding quickly darkened. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding scenery changed drastically. The strongest point of a saint was to have a spirit domain that belonged to him. Definitely not. Crane's face revealed a defeated look. Chapter 433. Suddenly, a loud sound interrupted Tang Tian's heroic thoughts. During that period of suppression, what exactly was it that caused a saint to be suppressed? The sheep-horn wind bells on the spearhead rang out melodiously in the wind. He raised his head. When he thought about this question, he was immediately attracted to it, because he felt that the answer to this question was extremely powerful. Tang Tian carefully recalled the battle just now and pondered over it bit by bit. He knew that he was not as smart as Crane, so he used a stupid method and pondered over it bit by bit. He finally understood his own path and merged all the high-level martial techniques into his fundamental martial techniques, allowing his fundamental martial techniques to become faster. Their training, their research on martial techniques could all be completed in the world that they controlled. But when both parties exchanged blows, Tang Tian suddenly realized that he was actually suppressing Xiaoda. After experiencing the initial ecstasy and excitement, Tang Tian suddenly thought of an important question. Why could he suppress his saint? He had a vague idea, but it was not clear. He was afraid that the inspiration would disappear, so he immediately called for a stop and sat down to think seriously. The path that he was walking on was something that no one had ever done before, and he had to rely on himself to explore. If he could understand this crucial point, his martial techniques would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. Although Tang Tian knew that such a suppression would not last long, but it still encouraged him. Since he was not as smart as others and could not understand the flaws, then he would focus on fighting himself and not care about others. And so it was like that. The realm of the spirit domain represented the realm of the saint. To a saint, it was just the difference between being strong and being weak. But a saint to a non-saint, on this point, it was the difference between having and not having. Crane's body trembled. As though he was sliding on ice, he suddenly plowed out a straight and deep mark of 70 m on the ground. Crane tightened his grip on the Crane sword, feeling the boiling fighting intent coming from the sword hilt. Not far away, Ling Su, who was just flung out, climbed up again and flipped over to sit on Flamingo. The silver spear in his hand, once again leveled out, not moving an inch. Tang Tian was slightly pleased to be able to suppress his saint. How powerful was that? Why am I so fast? Oh, it's because I used fundamental martial techniques. No wonder, no wonder. The fundamental martial technique was the martial technique he was most familiar with, which was why he was able to achieve such a speed. If it was any other martial technique, it would definitely not have such an effect. He had to be fast. The faster the better. Defeating a saint was such a great thing. Martial artists with higher realms could more easily control the rhythm of the battle. Thank you, Crane Sword. Ding. If he could maintain this speed, wouldn't he be able to keep suppressing Xiaoda? No. If he could be even faster, so fast that Xiaoda found it difficult to parry, wouldn't that be even more powerful? Xiaoda could not help but stare at Ling Su. Blood splattered across the sky. He blocked it. He had many flaws, but he needed time to make use of them. Xiaoda didn't have time, so he couldn't counterattack. If you wanted him to have no time to think, then you had to be fast enough to completely squeeze out the opponent's time to think. What a scoundrel! They were strong in many aspects, but if one were to ask what the strongest aspect of a saint was, it would undoubtedly be the spirit society. The spirit society represented the saint's understanding towards battles and martial techniques. The deeper the understanding towards martial techniques, the stronger the saint's spirit society would be. It was rumored that the spirit domains of the top saint-level martial artists could even be a complete world. While he was excited, an extremely daring idea popped up in his mind. His bloodied palm firmly held onto the silver spear. The bright and clean silver spear body was covered with long blood scars. It was the blood scars from when the silver spear flew out of his palm. Xiaoda could not believe the result in front of him. He did not hold back at all in that attack. But if it was not powerful, how could he suppress his saint? Ling Su felt Xiaoda's gaze on him, but he was not afraid at all. Focus your attack on me. The blade aura shattered. At the saint level, Everyone's true power did not differ much. What was competing was the strength of the Spirit Society. The strength of the Spirit Society, in other words, was the difference in realms. So I can attack so fast. The stronger the Spirit Society, the higher the realms. The heaven and earth are mine to use. This sentence sounded mysterious, but in other words, it was very simple. It was the accumulation of advantages. In the same environment, with the same strength, a higher realm meant that he would be able to discover more flaws and find more factors that were beneficial to him. All these seemingly superficial things would allow him to gain a slight advantage. When these advantages continued to accumulate, he would be able to control the situation more easily. Feng Ling was like the wind, the silver spear was like the stars, and the young man was like fire. Xiaoda's heart was suddenly burning. He did not have any passion for power, but towards martial techniques. He was filled with fanaticism. He had lived in seclusion in the mountains for so many years, all for the sake of pursuing the path of martial techniques. Ling Su's orange pupils suddenly lit up with a ball of flames. Flamingo rushed out in a flash, dragging a blazing trail of fire. The white-robed figure crouched down, his long silver hair fluttering in the air. "That's right, that's it. Are you all right?" Crane stared at Xiaoda and asked without turning his head. Tang Tian sat on the ground, deep in thought, and completely did not notice the situation around him. Saints were undoubtedly the strongest martial artists. Their true power was tyrannical. Their understanding of martial techniques was extraordinary, and they had their own spirit domains. The silver-blue light aura lit up again and slashed down. Ding! At the corner of Crane's mouth, a trace of blood flowed out. His calm eyes flashed with an excited light aura. A saint-level martial artist's full power attack was actually blocked by him and Ling Su's combined attack. All the figures that were once unreachable were now right in front of him, within his reach. Ling Su was not afraid. His figure on the back of the bird was not moving. That fierce face, angry eyes opened wide, an imposing aura, recklessly fluttering his silver hair. He was actually able to suppress a saint-level martial artist. This result was completely out of Tang Tian's imagination. Fundamental martial techniques. How could they suppress a saint-level martial artist? Oh, why didn't Xiao counterattack? What was he doing? Why didn't he counterattack? Oh, he was blocking my attack, yeah. Why didn't he counterattack after blocking? Oh, because I punched out again, and then he went to block my fist. What happened after blocking? He still did not counterattack because my fist arrived again. Facing the gale, his badly mutilated palm tightly gripped onto the spear body. The doubts in his mind suddenly cleared up, the star power in his body surged. He stood up immediately, wishing he could roar towards the sky. Tang Tian was excited. Until now, he was sure that the thing that he was messing around with was very powerful. This path was not wrong to choose. Xiaoda's face did not change, but his heart was not as calm. The layer of silver frost almost froze his blade aura. If not, how could Crane's sword break his blade aura? Tang Tian used to think so, too. In the past battles, it made him believe that it was the truth. A nimble black figure floated over, thrusting his sword out. Hell, we blocked it again. Although he already knew that Ling Su's spear technique was closely related to the silver frost mount, but when the strange silver frost appeared, he was still shocked. That's right, he was able to suppress Xiaoda. It was because he was fast. Crane, who flew out, his throat tasted sweet, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His chest, however, was filled with lofty sentiments. It was like this. That's great. Tang Tian became excited. Such a profound question, to be able to think of it himself. That was too powerful. As a saint, he knew much more than ordinary martial artists. Furthermore, the silver frost mount was only a few hundred qi dissipated. The silver frost mount represented one of the 12 golden palaces, the most orthodox inheritance of Aries constellation. This thought made Tang Tian excited. Tang Tian seemed to have found the crux. He did not have time to counterattack, because his moves were too fast, so fast that Xiaoda did not even have time to react. Silver Frost. Suddenly, 3 words jumped into his mind: Silver Frostmount. But after the battle, he suddenly realized this truth did not seem to be completely correct. The star power in his body was strong. Shouda's true power was not weak. He had the upper hand, but the advantage was not obvious. But in other aspects, he was at a disadvantage. But for all these years, his realm had always been stagnant. Previously, Tang Tian had the same thought as well. Regarding this battle, he had more of a desire to feel good. It was not easy to catch a saint. If he did not feel good, he did not know when he would be able to meet a saint again. Of course, he was also curious how strong a saint was. Could it be that the battle with Tang Tian, just now, caused him to use up too much true power? The accumulation of true power had a limit. Many quasi-saint martial artists, their true power was not inferior to those saints. But in a battle between both parties, they were not a match for a saint. It was simple. Their realm was too far apart, causing them to be at an absolute disadvantage in the battle. Tang Tian suddenly understood the reason why Shouda did not counterattack was because he did not have the time to counterattack. He was only attacking with all his might. That's right, completely with all his might. He did not care what technique Shouda used. A crisp sound, the silver blue blade aura that was dyed with silver frost, like a piece of silver blue glass, suddenly shattered. When he realized the inheritance in Ling Su's hands could possibly be real, his heart could not help but be agitated. The inheritance of the silver frost mount had nurtured countless saints. Such an ancient and powerful inheritance, even seeing it once, would be infinitely beneficial. The wind whistled past his ears. Ling Su clenched his teeth, used all his strength to hold onto the silver spear. Even a saint will definitely not be able to let go of my spear twice. I won't die. Ling Su carelessly spat out a mouthful of blood, stared at Shouda. His expression suddenly became unruly and fierce. Even a saint is not as strong as I thought. According to common sense, he should be at an absolute disadvantage. The tip of the spear and the blade aura collided. The silver frost was dyed. Ling Su's veins popped out. He held onto the silver spear tightly. The strong force caused his body to fly out again. Chapter 434. The outside world had always been spreading the relationship between Tang Tian and the Honorable Martial Alliance. But at the moment, Shouda felt that it was all nonsense. He did not find any Honorable Martial Alliance fighting style on Tang Tian's body, but it was extremely similar to Onyx Soul's fighting style. If he retreated now and waited for his true power to recover, then he would definitely win. To Shouda, Tang Tian actually had a special tactic, but there was no sure win tactic in the world. Any tactic would have a way to break it. All sorts of fundamental martial techniques struck the silver blue blade aura at an astonishing frequency. Ping! The silver blue blade aura was completely shattered. The moment the blade aura shattered, Tang Tian's figure flashed. Like a ferocious tiger, he pounced toward Shouda. Shouda jumped in fright, but this time he was already prepared. The blade in his hand slashed down. It was as though he did not see it, and directly rushed towards the blade aura. At the moment of contact, he suddenly exploded, and the fundamental martial techniques struck towards the blade aura like a torrential storm. But what Shouda did not expect was Tang Tian, who was in mid-air, did not even dodge. Suddenly, a voice came out. "Hey, Switch, this brat, what kind of freak is he?" With a clear target, Tang Tian's astonishing battle intuition immediately displayed itself. All the familiar high-level martial techniques flowed past his mind like flowing water. Tang Tian's fundamental martial techniques were quickly changing. Tang Tian could clearly see the ripples brought about by the trembling blade aura. When the second blade was blocked, Shouda's heart became even more fiery. He was now 100% sure. Ling Su's hand was the inheritance of Aries constellation, hailed as Heaven's Road's strongest spear technique, Aries Spear of Stars. Without hesitation, Tang Tian directly passed through the shattered aura and pounced toward Shouda. In a short second, Tang Tian brandished out a total of 300 attacks. and these 300 attacks were scattered all over the blade aura. And these 300 attacks, every attack's landing point, power, speed, were all within his control. His heart was filled with joy. The current him, compared to before, was much stronger. Compared to when he faced Ling Su Crane, Xiaoda's figure swayed. Tang Tian's attacks struck the blade auras like a torrential storm, causing Xiaoda to be affected as well. None of the attacks were as powerful as Ling Su's Silver Frost or Crane's Stinger, but there were too many of them, and the frequency of their attacks was too shocking, causing Xiaoda's chest to feel stuffy. Ping! To be able to unleash fundamental martial techniques and attack at a rate of 300 times in a second. How strong would one's body be, and how fast would one's reaction be? He had used up quite a bit of his energy after using his full strength twice in a row. In the battle with Tang Tian, he had consumed a lot of energy, but the recovery speed of a saint-level martial artist was not something that a non-saint-level martial artist could imagine and compare with. This was very brainless and stupid, but this was the martial arts of the godlike young man. He suddenly retreated backwards, trying to widen the distance between him and Tang Tian. The blade aura exploded into a ball of shattered aura. Tang Tian's body must have been modified by a high-level blood meridian. If not, he would definitely not be able to withstand Tang Tian's violent attacks. 300 fundamental attacks in a second and 300 spear attacks in a second were two completely different concepts. For example, Ling Su's pointed sea spear was actually a special technique and could only be considered as one technique because the true power in Ling Su's body could only be used once. His attacks became faster and faster, to the point that the naked eye could not catch them. Under such a berserk attack, the silver-blue blade aura trembled violently. Xiaoda suddenly thought of Ling Su's assault. Ling Su's assault, that indomitable desperation and recklessness, left a deep impression on him. From this point, Tang Tian could not compare. But Tang Tian's face did not have any teeth clenched, no anger, no killing intent, only concentration. He was like an honest man, earnestly and persistently doing one thing, that's all. Anyway, it was just a matter of one blade. In Tang Tian's mind, there was only one thought: how can I be faster? Defeat me? While Xiaoda was distracted, Tang Tian had already rushed in front of him. This world is too complicated. I can't understand it. There are too many changes in this world. I can't see through it. This world is in chaos. I can't understand it. But it doesn't matter. I can bury my head and walk my own path. I can wave my fists. I can display my own martial techniques and not care about this world. And Tang Tian's 300 fundamental attacks meant that his true power needed to be used 300 times. Without an outstanding blood meridian modified body, it was impossible to bear. Under the power of a saint, a spear technique that could cause a saint to fear, other than the 12 ecliptic palaces, honorable martial alliance, and onyx soul, there were definitely no other inheritances that could do it. With Ling Su and Crane's condition, blocking another 2 blades would be their limit. In truth, for the battle to drag to such a stage, it already made him extremely surprised. Xiaoda suddenly thought of a problem, and his face changed. Xiaoda's escape was very sudden. Ling Su and Crane did not expect it at all, and were dumbstruck. A saint would actually escape? Tang Tian's legs were using fundamental light body techniques, but the frequency was so fast that it caused people to be flabbergasted. The 2 figures started to chase, and what made Xiaoda's heart turn cold was that Tang Tian's speed was continuously increasing, and the distance between the 2 was actually shrinking. Every move that he released seemed to be in slow motion, becoming extremely clear. He could clearly see every detail, every change. All those high-level martial techniques: Fire Scythe, Ghost Claw, Thousand Cleave, Demonic Hand. In Xiaoda's heart, there was a rare panic, seeing that Tang Tian was getting closer. The blade in his hand trembled and slashed out again. The distance between the 2 was very close, and Tang Tian was rushing forward. It was extremely difficult to dodge. Xiaoda was already prepared. As long as Tang Tian dodged, he would follow up with his next move. My martial Tao is to fight with myself and to not care about other people hitting me. Tang Tian brought along a blurry afterimage, like a gust of wind. He rushed in front of Xiao De. Without thinking, he used his fists and legs to attack Xiao De. Xiao De never thought that Tang Tian would actually be able to destroy the blade aura so cleanly, and his face immediately changed. What made him truly fearful was Tang Tian's improvement. In a short period of time, Tang Tian's attack speed actually increased again. If he did not see it with his own eyes, he would definitely not believe it. Xiao De suddenly had a feeling of not knowing what to say. Oh, I'm wrong. Facing this guy, I don't seem to know what to say. His fists, palms, fingers, elbows, legs all continuously attacked the blade aura like a blacksmith's hammer continuously landing on a red-hot iron. Xiao De did not know whether to laugh or cry. You just sat there for a while, and you can think of a way to defeat a saint. All the saints in the world are already dead. But he was too lazy to argue with this asshole, to argue with such a stupid person. It was too shameful. Time seemed to have slowed down at that moment. In the past, Tang Tian's idea of merging high-level martial techniques with fundamental martial techniques was only a rough idea. He did not understand what exactly he wanted to merge. But at that moment, he had completely thought of the path he wanted to take. Once he thought it through, Tang Tian did not waver. All of his attention was focused on that point. Many of the things that were unclear in the past suddenly became clear. Tang Tian's moves subconsciously changed. These changes were very subtle, but it caused his speed to become faster. The wolf head on Tang Tian's tailbone suddenly lit up. The heavenly martial werewolf blood meridians had an astonishing improvement on Tang Tian's body. His body's agility became abnormally strong. Every joint in his body was extremely agile. Even under such a high frequency of attacks, his movements did not change at all. Tang Tian knew if he wanted to destroy the blade aura, he had to be faster than before. Xiao De's blade once again rose up. He took a deep breath, his face filled with killing intent. In the battle quickly, Xiao De calculated in his heart. He only needed a few more blades, and the two of them would definitely collapse. As for Tang Tian, from what he saw, he definitely could not continue. That was why he used such a clumsy excuse to stop. Tang Tian acted as though he did not see the abnormality of the blade aura. His fundamental martial techniques were at an astonishing rate, attacking like the wind. The killing intent on Xiao De's face congealed. His expression froze. Xiao De had already regained his senses. For a non-saint martial artist to suppress a saint martial artist, he must have expended all his energy. If not, how could it be possible? Tang Tian must be exhausted by now. Without thinking, he was like a cheetah, suddenly leaping out. He did not even consider Tang Tian at the moment, although his true power had been consumed a lot, but at least he could unleash 5 blades with all his strength. Chance! And such a high-level blood meridians could not be bought in the market. But for some reason, the concentration and seriousness on Tang Tian's face made Xiao De feel a chill down his spine. The silver-blue blade aura slashed straight towards Tang Tian. In a second, more than 200 fundamental attacks crashed onto the blade aura. Suddenly, a figure flashed in his eyes. He quivered so fast. The moment the fist and blade aura clashed, Tang Tian's figure flashed. The terrifying power penetrated straight through the blade aura. Tang Tian did not feel anything. Following the force of the blade aura, he retreated, and his hands changed at an astonishing speed. The fist immediately became a palm. Fingers flicking, sideways body pushing forward, side kick. His attacks were faster than before, but the current frequency was obviously not enough. It had to be faster. He did not have time to think. He did not have time to think about other things. His eyes were only on the blade aura. Bang! A familiar figure dashed in front of him from the side. Tang Tian buried his head. Without looking, he gathered all the energy in his body and attacked crazily. He was like a person training alone, using all his strength to unleash fundamental martial techniques. Too scary. Xiao De jumped in fright. He suddenly jumped back, turned, and ran. The true power in his body could only allow him to unleash his blade twice. and with Tang Tian's ferocious state, these two blades would definitely not be able to injure him in the slightest. Tang Tian looked at Xiao De, rubbing his palms, his eyes filled with fighting intent. He shouted, "Old man, you're dead. Just now I already thought of a way to defeat you. You're destined to be defeated by this godlike young man." He completely ignored Xiao De. Change people. As long as his true power recovered, and he killed his way back, the three of them would not be able to escape. But Tang Tian's attention was always on Xiao De. He did not relax at all. The moment Xiao De turned, his eyes shrunk like a needle. Chapter 435. Crane felt weird. Tang Tian did not like to read, but he could still read a little. Ling Su had a fiery temper. Reading was like a fuse that could ignite him. The only thing that could see Ling Su reading was the old book that his teacher left behind, but every time he read it, he would yawn with tears in his eyes and was extremely sleepy. There were a few times when Crane saw Ling Su holding the book upside down. The pearl looked like an ordinary stone pearl. There was nothing special about it, but when Tang Tian used strength to pinch it, it did not move. Tang Tian tried to inject star power into it, but there was still no reaction. He tried to burn it with fire, soak it with water, and even dipped it in blood, but after trying for half a day, the pearl did not have any reaction. Tang Tian gave up and kept it. But such a big character died in his hands today. Tang Tian's gaze looked at the light pillar in the distance. Why do I need to be so smart? Tang Tian suddenly revealed a proud smile. Only an idiot can become a great hero. Then let's call it the idiot hero flow. A curved blade was like a pool of autumn water, as though it was flowing slowly. This curved blade should be Xiao De's backup weapon, not a star treasure, and Tang Tian did not know who made it. The texture was extremely soft, especially the toughness. Tang Tian tried a few times, but no matter how much strength he used, he could not break the blade. Tang Tian did not have anyone who used blades, so he decided to leave the blade for Sai Lei, such a weird metal. If he could find a formula, Sai Lei would definitely be able to create something new. The two of them sat cross-legged. Their internal injuries were not light, but luckily their bodies were not severely injured. If not, it would not be so easy to recover. Xiao De's temperament was indifferent. He did not have many things on him, but he was after all a saint. To be able to enter his eyes, naturally it would not be ordinary. Concentrated attacks fell on his body like raindrops. He was like a human sandbag. In a short span of a second, he received 300 attacks. Tang Tian's basic attacks were filled with power, but the lethality could not be compared to Ling Su's killing technique. It was not a big problem for Xiao De to take a blow head-on. The true power in his body could be easily dissipated. That's right. Crane sighed. Tang Tian had absorbed a third of Ursa major constellation's star power, and the two of them were not envious at all. This was, after all, an external force, and on the path to sainthood, such an external force might not necessarily be a good thing. A martial artist who was obsessed with external forces would never be able to become a saint. Tang Tian yawned as he read. This book is useless to me. You can have it. Ling Su didn't expect Tang Tian to nod. He was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, "It's over. You're hopelessly stupid." A hand shot out like lightning. It was Ling Su. Xiao De's body froze, and the expression on his face froze. In terms of reading, even if Ling Su and Tang Tian were to be multiplied by 100, they would still not be Crane's opponent. The information in between the lines was constantly being sorted out and summarized by Crane. Tang Tian leapt forward as fast as lightning. It was as though he had already predicted that Xiao De would escape. This book was of great help to Crane and Ling Su. The two of them had just gained a superficial understanding of the spirit domain. As for what to do next, they had no clue. With this book, the two of them were enlightened. This fellow killed Master Xiao. Ling Su felt that his tongue was in a knot. No matter how hard he tried, he could not smooth it out. He stared blankly into the distance. It was a deep illusion, causing Tang Tian to suspect if he was dreaming. A saint, that was a saint, and he was actually killed by his own basic martial technique. No matter how he looked at it, it was absurd. Ling Su did not hide his jealousy. Not only is he a rascal, he's also brainless. Ling Su suddenly spat out a sentence. Brainless rascal. The wings shattered, and the sky was filled with silver light. Tang Tian's fist struck Xiaoda's body without any fancy moves. When Crane opened his eyes, he could not believe his eyes. Tang Tian was actually reading a book. We jumped back. Xiaoda was already dead. What made Tang Tian the most oppressed was that Xiaoda did not even have a card on him. Then I have to think of a cool name. Tang Tian's eyes immediately lit up. Do we still need a name? Tang Tian did not understand. Crane and Ling Su had already recovered. The three of them continued their journey. He trained in fundamental martial techniques for 5 years. Crane was impressed. Just this point, not many people can do it. His body's foundation was originally good. Adding on the heavenly martial werewolf blood meridians and the tempering of the star power, his body is now terrifyingly strong. This kind of rascal fighting style, only he can do it. Unknowingly, he had walked in front of them again. He was still a saint, such a powerful person, but he did not even have a card on him. How would he greet others when he went out? He could not believe his own eyes. The strength of a saint was already deeply imprinted in his mind. In his mind, every saint-level martial saint was a great figure, and he had to work hard to surpass them. Tang Tian was at the side, arranging his spoils of war. Tang Tian then came out from his state of concentration. He looked at the lifeless Xiaoda in front of him. In that moment, he was stunned. Saint rank, he actually killed a saint rank. He appeared behind Xiaoda like a ghost. Xiaoda heard the movement behind him, and his face changed. The blade in his hand suddenly scattered into countless of silver light. The silver light transformed into a pair of silver wings. The other item was a gray bead. Could he be faking his death? Crane was also dumbstruck and muttered, only by finding one's own martial Tao could one form their own spirit domain. That was what the two of them were envious of. Regardless of which martial technique it was ultimately a human's unearthing of their own potential. Their final destination was to perfect themselves and discover themselves. From these records, one could clearly see how Xiaoda became a saint step by step. Bang! Bang, bang, bang. What was happening to this world? Unfortunately, Yin Yonglai was already dead. What was burning now was his martial spirit. How would Tang Tian know that Xiaoda had always been living in seclusion in the mountains? Even if he had a card, it would be useless. How would he have a card? Tang Tian, who was not satisfied, kept the broken pieces of the silver blade. The star power in his body was the star power of Ursa Major constellation, so his senses were naturally incomparable to others. He could feel Yin Yonglai's determination and unyielding resolution in the light pillar. Much stronger. Ling Su's face revealed a bitter smile. His mouth was extremely bitter, although they were all on the same side. But to have him admit that he was not as good as others made him feel sad. But he still calmly said, "My pointed sea spear's power is dispersed. Every attack of his is very complete. His control over fundamental martial techniques has reached an inconceivable level." After cleaning up, Tang Tian, who was not satisfied, swept a few rounds unwillingly, but still did not find anything. The place was already so clean that it looked like it had been washed. Such an opponent made Tang Tian feel deep respect. But that did not mean Tang Tian would take the initiative to give up. Since he was an opponent, then he would give it his all. That was the respect to the opponent. Although he did not understand what was the use of the pearl, but these special points showed that it was not ordinary. Furthermore, not everything had the qualifications to become a saint collection. It was still very simple now, but Tang Tian had already found the path that belonged to him. The two of them were extremely envious, but there was no value in using it as a reference. Every person's martial path had to be in accordance with their temperament. Tang Tian could be so brainless and naive towards the world, but the two of them could not. They needed to find a martial path that belonged to them. Tang Tian bombarded for a full 10 seconds. Similarly, Ling Su and Crane were also stunned. This fellow's fighting method is so shameless. I wonder how shameless his spirit domain is. Ling Su suddenly said, his words revealing a thick sense of jealousy. Others might see the power of the heavenly martial werewolf blood meridian and see the credit of 1/3 of Ursa major constellation star power. But other than Tang Tian, who could train in fundamental martial techniques for 5 years, without the terrifying proficiency, how could there be such a speed? Other than Tang Tian, who could not be moved by the outside world and persevere in such brainless attacks? Ling Su's expression was complicated and muttered to himself, "That is a true hero. In any case, it was a saint blade and could be sold as scrap metal for a good price." He didn't expect that Ling Su would look at it for several hours. After he finished, he threw the book to Crane and went to the side to think. It is a fundamental martial technique, but it is too fast. How is it compared to your pointed sea spear? Crane's face congealed. This fellow was actually reading so enthusiastically, causing Crane to feel weird. Powerful martial techniques all have names. Crane guided patiently. Crazy Tang, what are you planning to name your martial technique? Crane asked. Crane took the book with a face of suspicion, and after skimming through a few pages, he was deeply attracted by the book. This book? No, to be more accurate, it was a notebook. It was Xiao Da's daily training experience. After a while, the two of them gradually regained their senses. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Very strong. Ling Su looked at Tang Tian, who was happily collecting his spoils of war, and said, "This is his martial technique, and only he can do it." Tang Tian, who was not resigned to not gaining anything, muttered in his heart. A rascal's fighting style was indeed very vivid, but brainless, that's right. Tang Tian nodded his head. The three of them looked at the light pillar in the distance. Forget it, let's hurry up. Crane, who was already in despair, gave up on his suggestion. In truth, if not for Xiao Da wanting to use his blade to form blade wings and let himself escape with Tang Tian's strength, it would be wishful thinking to want to destroy a saint blade. What kind of book could make these two fellows who never read to obediently hold onto the book and read it? Although Xiao Da was carelessly killed by Tang Tian, his own realm was still there and was not something the three of them could compare to. Even if Xiao Da trained in blade techniques, it was still a huge inspiration and reference for Crane. That was the martial technique that belonged to Tang Tian. But in a short span of a second, he had suffered over 300 attacks, and the true power in Xiao Da's body was instantly destroyed. It was completely destroyed in a mess. His meridians were broken inch by inch. Chapter 436. The dense and surging golden star power transformed into a golden vortex, frantically absorbing the surrounding star power. The other two also revealed looks of fatigue, but nodded their heads at the same time. But is truly painful. What a huge formation. Ling Su was filled with ridicule, his killing intent soaring. But you are right, Crazy Tang is truly powerful. If not for him, I would not have understood it so quickly. Ling Su could not help but clench his fists tightly. I finally understand. All the despair is not arranged by fate. It is what your so-called logic tells you. You tell yourself, your talent is ordinary and will never be able to catch up to others. You tell yourself how miserable and pitiful you are. Then you can die. You can bury yourself. I don't want to. Draco Constellation's vibrating mountain army was named after that. Crane was startled. Saying that, Crane's heart could not help but feel moved. He thought about himself. His father had passed away early, leaving him with a deep trauma. His childhood was shrouded in deep loneliness and shadows. The distorted figure wrapped in flames suddenly froze. But an even crazier battle rumbled in all directions. Crane's face was filled with shock and did not speak for a long time. Long Zhu laughed out loud. That's right. I will punish myself with a cup. That's right. Its rise is flourishing, and its fall is also sudden. In front of him, a middle-aged man sighed. There are no undefeated dynasties under the heavens. Even the strong Scorpio dynasty was turned into ashes. This Ursa major constellation, such a pity. Longzhu picked up the wine cup, downed it in one gulp. Half drunk, Yin Yong Lai is a hero, but I feel that the most pity is that I cannot fight with Tu Ching. The grizzly bear army is hailed as the strongest army in the polar lands. Not being able to personally experience it is a lifetime regret. Good. The middle-aged man stood up. Tang Tian was tightly wrapped by the surging star power. The light pillar that pierced through the clouds trembled intensely, as though it could collapse at any time. Long Zhu sat barefoot on the ground, his clothes half open, his black hair draped over his shoulders. A beautiful concubine beside him gently fanned herself. Do you know about the Walking Dead? That's it. The corners of Ling Su's mouth twitched. He wanted to force a smile, but it was uglier than crying. Actually, Great Elder treats me pretty well. He gives me whatever I want. If I hadn't met Crazy Tang, if I hadn't done something so ugly with Gu Shui, I would still be a walking corpse. Bastard, you're dead. Ling Su flew into a rage. Tang Tian calmed himself down. The burning star power was like a wild beast that had lost control. Tang Tian's idea was simple. He would absorb the star power into his body and use it to tame and assimilate them. The Saint Treasure of Ursa Major Constellation was not in his hands. The only fortunate thing was that his body contained close to a third of the Ursa Major Constellation star power. Yes, Crazy Tang's background is not simple. Crane nodded his head. I truly cannot think of any blood meridians that can hold a third of Ursa Major Constellation star power. Unfortunately, Crazy Tang's mother passed away early. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so troublesome. And I still have my mother. In the distant horizon, a group of people snaked over. Even though they were far away, they could still hear the faint rumbling sounds. Take down Ursa Major Constellation, Great Dragon. Why are you worried about not having opponents? Great Dragon slaughtering bear. That's a beautiful story. The middle-aged man clapped his hands and laughed. Ling Su's mouth twitched. His mouth hooked up into a disapproving smile. If not, cry to the heavens? Cry every day. You guys at least have parents. I don't even know who my parents are, but I don't want to know. Then, should I really say it? Crane's face was filled with probing. Crane could not imagine Tang Tian's life after his mother passed away. The two of them moved and jumped onto the roof of Ursa Major Palace. They found the highest point and looked out. The huge group in the distance was an army formed by vibrating mountain lizards. The vibrating mountain lizard was a star spirit beast unique to Draco constellation. It was a rare earth element lizard. It had a huge body with a height of over 6 m and a length of over 7 m. It was like a small moving mountain. The vibrating mountain lizard was extremely strong. Its body was huge, but not clumsy. It was docile and obedient, but when fighting, it was extremely valiant. On its forehead, there was a thick and short horn. A high-level vibrating mountain lizard could easily break a mountain. Ling Su's gaze looked into the distance. His arrogant face was calm and emotionless. When teacher died, I was 11 years old. I was sad at that time, and then it turned into despair and discouragement. I wanted to take revenge for teacher, but I knew I could not do it. My talent was average, and my body condition was terrible. I could not even satisfy teacher. But my enemy was a genius that teacher praised endlessly. Your heart was filled with hatred. But you knew, even if you trained for 100 years, you would not be the enemy's opponent. You even know that even your teacher did not wish for you to take revenge for him, because he knew you were not the enemy's opponent. He did not want you to send yourself to death. That kind of despair is more terrifying than sorrow. Let's go take a look. Crane suggested. You want to fish in troubled waters? You dare to step on the head of Tai Sui. You do not know what death is. Ling Su raised his eyebrows and sneered. I told myself, I want to leave this place. If I leave this place, I will not be so sad. And so I left. I was at a loss. I did not know where to go. I just walked forward. Walking and walking, I did not remember how long I walked and did not know where I walked to. When I was hungry, I would kill star spirit beasts. When I was thirsty, I would find a water source. I would kill some bandits. When the great clan elder of the Gu family met me, he thought I was a barbarian. I did not know how to convince you to give up burning. If you do not give up, I will fight with you. Tang Tian paused for a moment. I will not let Ursa major constellation be destroyed. Bing and the rest would do better than you. Although maybe that Ursa major constellation is no longer the Ursa major constellation that you protect. Ling Su's face that was filled with arrogance suddenly froze. He turned his face in a stupefied manner. Crane immediately saw the throbbing veins on Ling Su's forehead. Crane immediately reminded him, Hey, you were the one who made me say that. Ling Su regained his composure. He turned his face with a thick self-ridicule. This should be called bravery. I actually learned it from a crazy young man. All these years, I have truly lived like a dog. At that moment, the wind blew up the veil. The light pillar in the distance suddenly trembled violently. Long Zhu's face immediately became gloomy, and then he laughed. The blazing hot current frantically surged into Tang Tian's body. The three of them had solemn expressions. This was their respect for Yin Yong Lai. He raised the wine cup in front of him and drank it in one gulp. He laughed. After this battle, we will drink to our heart's content. Let's go. The martial spirit seemed to be releasing an astonishing fighting intent. The intense fighting intent caused the surrounding flames to distort. That, so hopeless. Ling Su, how bad is your talent? Crane had a face of sympathy. Tang Tian extended out his palm and placed it on the light pillar. It was as though he was touching the pillar of fire. The extremely hot heat caused him to subconsciously want to retreat, but he endured it. Not only that, he forcefully inserted his palm into the light pillar. Interesting. Crane revealed a warm smile. Previously, he only felt as though he was in a sea of fire, but now he felt as though his body was a blazing furnace, and he still had to bite the bullet and work hard to assimilate the combusting star power. Crane said softly, For him to be like this, it is truly not easy. Let me. Tang Tian said. The star power of Ursa major constellation in his body was the densest, and Ursa major constellation was the closest to him. Out of the three of them, only he could stop the combusting of Ursa major constellation. I never thought that someone would beat me to it. Interesting. Speak. Crane wanted to say something, but stopped. Ling Su and Crane guarded the surroundings, the two of them preventing anyone from attacking Tang Tian. This fellow is truly a freak. Ling Su could not help but say, He can't even burst like this. Along the way, they met with countless of obstructions. All of the martial artists with weak strength pounced on them like a tide, completely disregarding their lives. The three of them continued to kill and finally reached the palace. The star power in his body suddenly surged out. My heart is filled with hatred. I want revenge. Even if I am as stupid as a pig, I will crawl to the front of that sinner. If I am destined to die, I will die under the spear of that sinner. No matter what, I will definitely not bury myself. Ling Su raised his eyebrows with a face of insolence. Huh? Isn't it powerful? Your spirit must have been baptized. These people are truly difficult to deal with. Tang Tian smacked his lips, his expression somewhat moved. Even though you know you will die, you are still working so hard. You are truly powerful. Looking at the light pillar that shot into the sky from Ursa Major Palace, the three of them revealed looks of respect. Longzhu looked through the veil and saw the light pillar that shot into the sky from Ursa Major Palace, and could not help but sigh. Yin Yong Lai was a tyrant of his generation, but I never thought that he would end up like this. In the blink of an eye, Ursa Major Constellation has declined to the point of being defeated. It truly makes people sigh with sorrow. Tang Tian's entire body trembled. The clothes on his body turned into ashes, and the light pillar became sluggish. The star power in Tang Tian's body suddenly revolved. Crane was stunned by Ling Su's sinister look. Crane looked at Ling Su in shock. The vibrating mountain lizard at the front of the group was much larger than the rest. On its back was a pavilion, and from the veil hanging down, there was a faint sound of music coming out. Ling Su shook his head and said, For Ursa Major Constellation, he disregarded everything and gave up everything. He is a true hero. As his enemy, we can only give it our all and disregard everything to be worthy of this victory. For such a hero, to die fighting with all his might. There will be regrets, but there will be no remorse. Suddenly, the two of them stopped. It was as though he was in a sea of fire. He felt that it was extremely familiar, as though he was looking at the depths of the palace, inside the sea of fire, the martial spirit that was constantly burning. Truly a hero worthy of respect. Crane looked at the light pillar and muttered. For his own constellation, for the future, he burned himself to death. And we have to destroy his final burning. It makes me feel complicated. You lost. Tang Tian rushed to the martial spirit that was wrapped in flames and shouted, I admire your determination to fight, but everything is over. Blood should not be spilled for meaningless battles. Ursa Major Constellation should not be destroyed like this. Ling Su said impatiently. If you have something to say, just say it. Aren't you annoying being so long-winded? Chapter 437. Yes. A few martial artists replied and jumped down. He looked into the distance, his thoughts flying. He was still young and inexperienced. Leading Draco Constellation's strongest army had always been a controversial position. He urgently needed a victory to stabilize his position. He was looking forward to the expressions of the people and what kind of scene it would be. Sima Xiao laughed. People always need something to chase after. Do you plan to participate in the clan elders meeting? Qiu Jun asked. Qiu Jun suddenly said, between Long Zhu and Tang Tian, who do you think will win? It's a pity I cannot personally witness the battle. It truly is a pity. Sima Zhao's face was filled with regret. His fingers quickly swept past the desserts, and the desserts flew into his mouth like raindrops. Mr. Wang's expression was calm. He had seen such expressions too many times, and was long used to it. I don't know. Sima Xiao shook his head, but Wang Yi took away the newest spirit general. I am very curious about their performance. If that's the case, then your target can only be Tang Tian. Qiu Jun was surprised. Speaking about it, I've always found it strange. Tang Tian and we do not have any conflict. We mind our own business. I do not understand why you always pay attention to them, and even fear them. Sima Xiao laughed. Wrong. I'm not gloomy, I am unscrupulous. As long as I can win, I need to be open and above board. And I'll be open and above board. Furthermore, I am very interested in the spirit generals in Tang Tian's hands. If we are able to create even more powerful spirit military generals, then that will be even more powerful. Qiu Jun reported. The Vibrating Mountain Army has already entered Ursa Major Constellation. They will quickly meet up with Tang Tian and the rest. Qiu Jun continued. With your personality, since you have already treated him as your opponent, then you will definitely lay down a trap. I understand. Long Zhu is the enemy you prepared for Tang Tian? Sima Xiao frowned, after a moment. Actually, I do not understand why. But every time I see Tang Tian, or hear news about Tang Tian, I will feel that he will be a threat to me in the future. The surname Long, in Draco Constellation, was a big surname. Almost 70% of the higher-ups of Draco Constellation were surnamed Long Zhu was of noble birth. His grandfather was one of the two saints of Draco Constellation in the past. However, he did not have much interest in cultivation since he was young. Instead, he stayed in the red light district and did not do any proper work. Sima Xiao stopped and placed the desserts back into his plate and spoke with a serious expression, because I have high hopes for them. His father had no choice but to harden his heart and send him to the army, wanting him to suffer for a few years. Unexpectedly, after a few years, when he returned home, it was as if he had changed into a different person, and his bearing was extraordinary. While his father was pleasantly surprised, he began to secretly try to push him to an important position. What are you going to do? Sima Xiao said disapprovingly. Two stubborn old fogies, talking about all these useless things. It's a waste of time. Oh, they were too old to keep up with the times. It didn't matter if one was old, but if one was stubborn when one was old, then that was stupid. Besides, I don't like people without initiative. Sima Xiao scoffed. Don't tell me you expect him to be loyal? The bigger his ambition, the better. The bigger his ambition, the more he dares to make a move. He has the ability and ambition. That is the best. I can support him to become the Heavenly Dragon King. Control? From the start, I have never thought of controlling the 5 polar domains. Even if I were to go to such a poor and broken place, I would be too lazy to go. The change in Ursa major constellation happened in just a few days. Facing such a huge change, the entire Draco constellation was at a loss. In the 5 polar domains, in terms of fighting power, Ursa major constellation was the strongest. In terms of overall strength, Cepheus constellation and Cassiopeia constellation merged to form the immortal Martial constellation was undoubtedly the number one. And Ursa Minor constellation and Draco constellation were lacking by a large margin. No problem, the middle-aged man said straightforwardly. Mr. Wang ordered a few martial artists beside him. Go, get rid of all those people who are in the way. If they were able to subdue him, it would be of great help to the master. Longzhu was a person who held a high position at such a young age, and his future was limitless. If he managed it well, he might be able to become the Heavenly Dragon King. You have high hopes. Qiu Jun was surprised. Lupus constellation is just one of the most declining constellations in the southern sky's 42 constellations. Even Andromeda constellation is just a northern sky constellation. With such a small power, I truly cannot see what is it about Tang Tian that is worthy of you being so fearful and optimistic about. It is because he is not mature. That is why we need to test it out. Sima Xiao stopped and said unhappily, we have wasted too much time previously. It was not easy for us to develop a unique fighting method, but in the end, we spent all our time scheming and wasted all our time on internal strife. If in those years we had placed our focus on researching on even more powerful spirit generals, who knows how much stronger we would be. This statement made Qiu Zijun even more surprised. Tang Tian's strength is not bad. His potential is huge, and he is an outstanding martial artist. This I admit, but for you to actually view him as your opponent, I am unable to understand. Do you really think that your path will work? Spirit generals are strong and martial artists are weak. There has never been a good ending. Qiu Zijun was a traditional martial artist and did not reject spirit generals, nor did he like them. And the clan union's path of using spirit generals as the main path, to him, was already a crooked path. What if he wins? Qiu Zijun suddenly said. Sima family. Longzhu's methods were extremely powerful and very quickly managed the vibrating mountain army like an iron bucket. Mr. Wang sneered in his heart. Longzhu was extremely ambitious and was unwilling to be left out. If not for that, how could he convince him? And Longzhu looked to be carefree. But in truth, he had many schemes in his heart. Such a person, if they did not let him see their own strength, how could he be convinced? The elites of Ursa Major constellation were all out, and the current territory was empty. If they could take advantage of the situation, there was a huge possibility of taking down Ursa Major constellation. Even if they could not take down the entire Ursa Major constellation, taking down a few planets would still be a huge achievement. Longzhu's skin was white. His eyes were long and narrow. The corners of his eyes were slightly raised. His long hair draped over his shoulders. Although he was a man, he had a rather charming aura. Because of that, he received the love of many ladies. Qiu Zijun was surprised. Isn't the technique not mature yet? Who knows? Sima Xiao looked at his senior brother and smiled. But it is worth the risk. This is the only chance for the clan union to rise up, comparing martial techniques and treasures. We are not the opponent of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Comparing armies. We are not the opponent of Leo Constellation. Comparing blood meridians. We are not the opponent of Onyx Soul. We need something of our own to be able to become stronger. Although this path is unknown, but at least it seems to be the most likely path. And just at that time, the original commander of the Vibrating Mountain Army contracted a strange illness and had no choice but to select a new commander. Longzhu consecutively defeated a few candidates and became the commander of Draco Constellation's strongest army. I will have to trouble Mr. Wang with those small fishes. Longzhu bowed slightly and smiled at the middle-aged man. Furthermore, he had a strong ally. Qiu Zijun understood the fate of the two clan elders and suddenly said, 12 seats. You have already obtained the support of 9 seats. I am curious. Why did you not snatch the position of alliance leader? Actually, you do not want to be under others. Even if it is the Honorable Martial Alliance, Onyx Soul, or Leo Constellation, you're not willing to lower your head. Choji Jun said indifferently. Teacher said that your character is the true pride, and indeed he was right. Long Zhu's way of speaking was extraordinary. He was experienced and deeply liked by Dragon King Tian, and his romantic and uninhibited nature made him even more praised by the higher-ups. At that time, many people sighed. The grandson of a saint was actually so depraved and could not be saved. The few guarded by Long Zhu's side revealed looks of disdain. The light body techniques of the few martial artists that jumped down were not that good. They were unable to understand why the master would care about them. Wang Ye's evaluation of Long Zhu is he is shrewd, good at scheming, and extremely ambitious. Qiu Jijun looked at Sima Xiao. This kind of person, even if he were to pledge allegiance, I am afraid he would be two-faced. Long Zhu immediately realized that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Sima Xiao kept stuffing snacks in his mouth and said without raising his head, "What's so good about that seat? It's just a puppet. I don't want it all. Just like the patriarch of the Sima family. I don't want it all. Let the first branch do it. It's good like this. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. No one dares to go against you. And there's even someone to be your shield. Such a good thing. Where else can I find it? Your methods are too sinister." Qiu Jijun frowned. Just when the entire Draco constellation was at a loss, Long Zhu received a large amount of insider news. Yin Yonglai was dead. Tu Qing was obstructed, as expected of senior brother. Sima Zhao's face revealed a bright and innocent smile. Since I feel threatened, I will definitely face this threat head-on. Danger must always be nipped in the bud. That is the best. If he dies, then everything will be over. Then he will be the target of everyone. Sima Xiao nonchalantly picked up a piece and sent it to his mouth. Long Zhu has taken over Ursa, a major constellation. Whether or not he can defend it is hard to say. And if Tang Tian takes over Ursa, major constellation, then how many people will be jealous? Such a big piece of meat, who wouldn't want to share? Chapter 438. They had witnessed the chaos of the mechanical army previously. On the battlefield, the difference between a recruit and a veteran was the difference between life and death. No matter how well trained a recruit was on the battlefield, to be able to display half of their strength was already considered good. Before he finished, the right side of the horizon suddenly rose a bronze color. The trembling of the ground became even more intense. The rumbling sounds were like thunder rumbling in the clouds, rolling over. Long Zhu's face changed. He was too familiar with the sound. It was the sound of a heavy army advancing quickly. Everyone immediately retracted the smiles on their faces. But halfway there, he was stopped by someone. Long Zhu also laughed. He clapped his hands. "All right, I think the enemy's assault will take at least another 2 minutes to reach us." Being in the midst of it, Wang Yi felt that he was extremely small. He knew that Long Zhu was flaunting his martial strength, but he was still shocked and even believed it. Just as Long Zhu was thinking, suddenly the ground trembled. Long Zhu had long seen the change in Wang Ye's expression from the corner of his eyes. His heart was shocked, but when he realized that the 8 martial artists facing each other were not frightened at all, he was surprised. Ordinary martial artists, facing the sudden eruption of an army's imposing aura, were unable to handle it. There were many things to pay attention to when initiating an assault, for example the morale to press forward, or the high-speed assault to be able to tear apart the enemy's formation, and the crux of all of these was distance. If the distance was too long, running for a long distance would consume too much of the physical strength and true power, and would cause the speed of the army to slow down, the morale would gradually drop, and the assault would lose its momentum. Long Zhu, who was high up, exclaimed. He turned and smiled at Wang Yi. "I never thought that the numbers would be just right." Long Zhu and Wang Yi looked at each other. Under Tang Tian, didn't he only have a lupus army? Why would he have a heavy army? Be alert. We definitely cannot lose. Whoever dares to drop the ball at this time. When we return, Everyone will take care of him. Wang Ye's heart trembled. The reputation of the Vibrating Mountain Army was not as prominent as the Grizzly Bear Army. But after personally witnessing it, he realized that the Vibrating Mountain Army's strength was astonishing. Long Zhu's face revealed a sinister smile. So what if it was a mechanical army? In front of his Vibrating Mountain Army, it was as weak as paper. He suddenly said to the martial artist beside him, "Stop advancing and give up the battlefield. Let everyone enjoy this fierce battle." Until now, Alan still did not know where their destination was. Under Master Bing's orders, they continued to advance, and advance. They did not encounter any enemies along the way, which was completely different from what everyone had expected. Where did this heavy army come from? One of Long Zhu's generals gestured vividly, and everyone burst out laughing. Many people muttered in their hearts. Everyone laughed even louder, and some people even had tears in their eyes. It was a mess. For this group of recruits, when they encountered an actual enemy, they would never be able to perform as they usually did in training. Long Zhu truly has some standards. This Vibrating Mountain Army seems to be much stronger than I thought. The order was immediately passed down. All the mountain-shaking lizards lowered their bodies and raised their heads. The martial artists on their backs all had solemn expressions. Han Bingming stood with her sword in her hand without saying a word. She turned around and glanced at the light pillar in the distance before looking away. "Everyone get ready. At least we did not come too late." Liang Qiu heaved a sigh of relief. His face had a trace of blood, but his expression was calm. Wang Yi only felt the ground beneath his feet trembling, the sky and earth spinning. He was shocked. His body almost flew out, and an orderly roar sounded out in his ears. After the initial shock, Long Zhu quickly calmed down. Seeing the chaos in the enemy's army, he could not help but laugh. So it's a group of amateurs. That power just now was truly terrifying. Alan did not think too much. To him, obeying orders was the most important. Everything in front of the torrent would be completely crushed. But in the eyes of Long Zhu and the rest, it made them unable to restrain their laughter. "Yes," everyone answered loudly. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" The surrounding martial artists all relaxed and laughed out loud. Sima Xiangshan crossed his arms, like a mist floating in the air. He gave off a sinister feeling. "Seems like the clan union's strength is much stronger than I thought. They are obviously stupid to the point of not wanting their lives." Long Zhu's expression became solemn. "Prepare to charge." The Vibrating Mountain Army was Draco Constellation's strongest army. Every single one of them had rich battle experience. Seeing such a recruit army, it was like seeing a big joke, causing an uproar. "Good." Long Zhu clapped his hands and laughed. "For us to watch this battle, we will naturally liven things up. Ligu, let the children give the brave warriors a boost." He flew out of the pavilion, his true power surging. He said sternly, "General's orders, the entire army will be there, to boost the morale. Steady, steady." The distance between both parties was quickly decreasing. The Vibrating Mountain Lizard was frantically increasing its speed, and when both parties collided, the Vibrating Mountain Lizard's speed would increase to its maximum. "Yo, they're starting to charge at us." A military general seemed to have discovered a new continent and said excitedly. The four martial artists beside Wang Yi looked to be weak, but were actually relatively calm. "Charge!" The four of them met with the obstruction of two king bear martial artists, and after spending a great deal of effort, they were able to obtain victory, and the four of them suffered different degrees of injuries. But I feel that we need to give them a good lesson and let them understand what is called a charge. Bing did not say a word. He rode on Sky Tiger and rushed to the front. Long Zhu's Vibrating Mountain Army unexpectedly stopped, and four martial artists rushed out from the troops and flew towards the palace. Long Zhu's reaction was extremely fast and said solemnly, "Everyone turn right. Stay alert. There is an army approaching. The enemy's military general. How amateurish are they?" In that moment, the last bit of haze in everyone's heart dissipated. All of them rubbed their fists, waiting for the enemy to rush in front of them, and then they would give them a head-on blow. And the four people who suddenly rushed in were also very calm. Immediately, The surroundings became chaotic. The roars of the squad leaders immediately exploded out, filling the entire army. 500 vibrating mountain lizards rhythmically patted the ground, as though they were beating a drum. Interesting, who knows, it might really be a fierce battle. A swift and fierce-looking martial artist beside Wang Yi replied, "Yes." Or maybe it was a long-distance training. The huge vibrating mountain army actually did not make a single sound. So, when Long Zhu and the rest saw that the enemy was so far away, and yet they started to rush forward in a disorderly manner, that was why they laughed out loud. The troops behind them, after the initial chaos, started to become neat and tidy. After all, their daily training was extremely strict, and all of the students were picked out from 100, and their qualities were relatively outstanding. With the order, a loud bang sounded out. The hundreds of vibrating mountain lizards' feet exerted force at the same time, converging into a muffled sound, causing Wang Ye's chest to feel stuffy. The vibrating mountain lizards were extremely large, but their movements were extremely agile. Under the high-speed charge, the impact produced was incomparable. And the scene of hundreds of vibrating mountain lizards madly rushing at the same time was extremely shocking, like an unstoppable flood. With such a long distance, by the time the enemy rushed over, they would be exhausted and powerless, waiting to be slaughtered. Pay attention to your position. The roars mixed with the muffled sound of the ground trembling, causing Wang Yi to feel as though he was in a raging wave and could not help but be overwhelmed with shock. His gaze swept across Long Zhu and the others. All of them had excited and ferocious expressions on their faces. Suddenly, the sentinel at the front shouted, "Prepare for battle. There are enemies ahead." Long Zhu could not help but smile. The enemy's charge was truly too amateurish. To any army, charging was one of the most important methods of battle, so the training of charging was usually part of their daily training. Relax, relax, don't be nervous, do as usual. Wang Yi laughed out loud. Great Dragon has such lofty sentiments. Seems like you have a card up your sleeve. This little brother will naturally accompany you. Wang Ye's mind involuntarily jumped out with the words arrogant soldiers and valiant generals. Aluan worked hard to control the true power in his body. The past few days of rushing through the night and day, everyone's physical strength was being depleted very quickly, but luckily everyone's daily training was not excessive, and very quickly everyone found their rhythm and became skillful and at ease. Aluan quivered, the blood in his body rushing straight to his head. Were they going to fight? Bang, bang, bang. The enemy's military general is too powerful. Look, if we were to charge normally, this army is still in a mess. What do? Then let's lengthen the distance. All right, 2 li of charging distance. Let's go for 4 li. That's a little short. Then let's go for 6 li after running for 4 li. We should be able to tidy up the army. Haha, start and charge from so far away. That's really stupid. Bing did not say a word. He acted as though he did not see the chaos in his own army, and continued to advance. Haha, coming early is better than coming at the right time. The moment we arrive, there's a fight that feels great. A Maori clenched his fists so hard that they made caw-caw sounds. He laughed. The clothes on his body were extremely tattered. Chapter 439. The surrounding military generals, upon seeing the disheveled and crazy general rushing at the front, their eyes immediately turned red. He immediately turned to look at the right side of the troops, where a silver army that was flickering with light seemed to have rushed out from the void. With classes as units, under Bing's command, they continuously rushed out from the defensive line, like blades continuously stabbing into the vibrating mountain army. The vibrating mountain army that had lost its general was slowly being cut up, separated, and dismembered. Furthermore, it was the best opportunity for them to fight. His unparalleled was to charge. When the vibrating mountain army was distracted by the lupus army, Bing suddenly gave the order to speed up. It was the first order he had given since the start of the battle. Charge! The speed of the lupus army caused Long Zhu to be shocked, and it was obvious that the opponent was a well-trained army. Even when they were charging, their formation was still as neat as a ruler. Bing had been the chief instructor for so many years, and his understanding of the recruits far surpassed the other military generals. He was very clear: to throw the recruits into a cruel and intense battle was to seek death. If they were to clash head-on with the vibrating mountain army, even with Bing's command, they would still be defeated. Long Zhu's heart suddenly surged with a cold intent, although he did not know the opponent's assault tactic. But just from the formation of the army, it made him understand that the opponent was definitely strong. He continued to command the students and started to cut up the opponent's army. The extremely tight defensive formation was airtight. Bing's cold voice could be heard by the entire team. With a few flashes, he grabbed onto a few mechanical spirit weapons that were muddle-headed and threw them back to the team behind him. From the start, Bing did not bet on the group of students from the Sky Marshal Wolf Academy. To him, it was the best opportunity for him to fight. Furthermore, he had the trump card of the Lupus Army equipped with the Andromeda battle gown. He had sufficient confidence. From start to finish, Bing was extremely calm. Often, a few mechanical spirit weapons would rush at the vibrating mountain lizard at the same time. These hot-blooded youths had even forgotten their usual martial techniques and only instinctively used brute force. Xiao Wu, defend. Long Zhu's heart was filled with despair. The vibrating mountain lizard's speed had already increased. Its astonishing body made it unstoppable when it charged, but this also meant that it had another weakness. Once it increased its speed, it was almost impossible to change directions. But at that moment, he could not care about anything else. The Lupus army had completely penetrated through the vibrating mountain army, and they had to completely turn around and increase their speed before they could begin their next assault. Such a thing that defied common sense was happening right before his eyes. And in many people's eyes, although they were ambushed, the Lupus army was not a heavy army. Although they had to pay with a portion of casualties, but with a sufficiently thick formation and the gigantic body of the vibrating mountain lizards, it was enough to slow down the enemy. And as long as the opponent's speed slowed down, even if they lost half of their men, they had the confidence to get rid of the weak Lupus army. A heart-shaking collision sound rang out. Both sides were like two powerful torrents that fiercely collided with each other. Both of them were similarly enormous and heavy. Kill! The dragon bamboo was unstoppable, forcefully piercing through 5 lines of defense before it was stopped. Tang Yi's eyes were like lightning, the light aura exploding out. He raised the Zanbato in his hand. The vibrating mountain army in front of him did not move him at all. To other people, the assault of the vibrating mountain army might be extremely impactful, but to Tang Yi, he did not even place it in his eyes. His assault was unparalleled under the heavens. Following closely behind were 30 smaller light spears, arranged in a fan shape, entering the chaotic, vibrating mountain army. All of the light spears were extremely sharp. Effortlessly piercing through the bodies of the vibrating mountain lizards, they continued to fly forward, piercing through 5 or 6 of them before disappearing. Even if it was a frontal assault, he was not afraid at all. Long Zhu and the vibrating mountain lizard beneath him suddenly lit up with a conical light barrier. The conical light barrier pointed forward, like a battering ram. Long Zhu's hands and feet turned cold. The student facing Long Zhu, the moment the shield in his hand touched the light barrier, he knew that the force was not something he could endure. The moment he was struck flying, he jumped up with all his might. His underlings immediately reacted. That's right. As long as they rushed into the mechanical army, both parties would be mixed together. The enemy would be worried about their allies and would be unable to unleash the terrifying might of their assault. But the morale of both parties were on completely different levels. Only the master would have such boldness. Seeing Long Zhu rushing left and right in the encirclement of Class 31, Bing's expression was calm. The counterattack of the enemy before death would only be more ferocious than before. Long Zhu leapt up, jumping onto the head of his 8th-level vibrating mountain lizard, fiercely slapping it. Activating his true power, he bellowed, "Charge! Charge forward! Those who retreat will die." But he had already lost the advantage of speed and was trapped in a formation in imminent danger. What was worse was that the gap that he created was quickly filled up by Little 5. Long Zhu's gaze landed on the silver, flickering, strange battle robes, the Andromeda battle robes. That was the Andromeda battle robes. It must definitely be the effect of the Andromeda battle robes. Could it be the effect of the Andromeda battle robes was actually invisibility? Long Zhu bellowed and took the lead. The martial artist behind him continuously released rays of light auras, like raindrops. They entered Long Zhu's body. Over 10 tall, gigantic bronze shields. On top of them crisscross sharp spikes. It was extremely terrifying, like a bronze wall with spikes. And beside them, there were half-squatting substitutes, ready to provide support at any time. And behind them, there was a 15-long empty space, half-squatting with shields defending mechanical spirit weapons. Their mission was to deal with the enemies that were attempting to jump into the formation from the sky. Bing had racked his brains and made all sorts of arrangements, just for the current situation. Very quickly, the vibrating mountain army was sliced into 10 pieces. They frantically rushed forward, wanting to rush out of the encirclement, but the enemy had too many people, and their coordination was gradually becoming better. The vibrating mountain army felt that the rope binding them was getting tighter and tighter. Bang! After experiencing the long-distance charge, the mentality of this group of recruits had already gradually adjusted. This time, the acceleration was just barely passable. Bing knew the true test had just begun. The vibrating mountain army had not regained their senses from the sneak attack and did not place the rookie army in front of them in their eyes. As for the mechanical army that Bing was leading, they did not think too much, although the youths were not calm and experienced enough, but they were full of drive. Most importantly, they had an overwhelming advantage in numbers. Bang, bang, bang. So scary. Abandon your mounts. Kill. Third class 1 attack. But at that moment, Long Zhu had no path of retreat. If he waited for the Lupus army to turn around, then all of them would fall. Kill. Not good. There's an ambush. Long Zhu's eyes twitched. His mechanical spirit weapon instantly flew into the air, and he relaxed. That's great. It did not affect the line of defense behind him. He knew that the opponent was strong, but he did not expect that the opponent's assault would be so ridiculously strong. The Lupus army did not have any intention to attack. Tang Yi's mission was actually just to attack. Could it be that Master, from the start, planned to use this army for the Sky Martial Wolf Academies used to train? Everyone's face changed. No matter how dangerous the situation was in the past, Master had never asked them to give up on the vibrating mountain lizard. They had interacted with the vibrating mountain lizard day and night and had deep feelings for it. To ask them to abandon their mounts, many of them could not help but hesitate. The weight of the mechanical spirit weapons compared to the vibrating mountain lizard were not any lighter, so when they launched their assault, the impact was extremely shocking. Although it was the first time for this batch of students, but all of them were young and vigorous, and all of them released their full strength. Just at that moment, a strange rumbling sound suddenly came out from another direction. Seeing the line of defense in front of him, Long Zhu immediately understood. Every step was meticulously arranged by the opponent. The Lupus army roared in anger and waved their blades at the same time. Countless blade auras were like raindrops, converging on Tang Yi's body. Long Zhu roared, his face contorted sinisterly, and no longer had the elegance he had before. He was like a wild beast on the brink of death, releasing its final roar. That also meant, in this short period of time, the entire mechanical army only had to face roughly 100 enemies. Bing's prestige among the students was extremely high, although the victory had caused everyone's blood to rush to their heads, but they gradually calmed down. Both parties clashed without any fanciful moves. Everyone frantically urged the vibrating mountain lizards to rush forward. They did not care about their comrades who were struggling and wailing on the ground, or the vibrating mountain lizards that were not dead yet. Under the trampling of the torrent, they were all turned into meat paste. To Long Zhu, it was his only chance. Heavy spear assault. It was not easy to find such a powerful military general to be his sparring partner. Risk it all. He was also in awe of the master's methods. So fast, The Lupus army that had pierced through the vibrating mountain army had already broken away from the enemy's formation and left behind a 50 m wide empty space in the enemy's formation. That also meant that the enemy's front and back were separated. At the start, when they chose the position to attack, Bing had requested for them to attack at a quarter of the enemy's formation. Once he started his assault, regardless of whether it was the vibrating mountain lizards or the other armies, in his eyes, there was no difference. His words were like thunder, and the Zanbato slashed down. Xiao Wu, who was long prepared, led a group of mechanical spirit weapons and rushed to the front and stood firmly. These mechanical spirit weapons were different from the other mechanical spirit weapons. They were equipped with specialized defensive mechanical spirit weapons. Xiao Wu's personality was extremely calm and collected. Even in the face of a landslide, he would not change his expression, and it was because of this personality that Bing allowed him to lead a specialized defensive team. After experiencing a short stalemate, the vibrating mountain lizards were sent flying one after another. The scene of the vibrating mountain lizards' huge bodies being sent flying was extremely shocking. This was what the instructors had repeatedly told them during training. An outstanding shield defense soldier did not mean that he could block all attacks, but that he could always make the right choice. Long Zhu's face changed. The enemy's clumsy assault was simply a feint. The enemy's true killing move was the army that was lying in ambush at the side. Lupus army. Long Zhu suddenly realized the army that looked to be flickering with silver light was the Lupus army under Tang Tian's command. Without hesitation, Bing led the mechanical army and suddenly increased their speed. But they could not handle the numbers. The mechanical army crashed into the enemy's formation. How could I not realize it? Long Zhu's face revealed a look of despair. A gigantic light spear shot out from Tang Tian's hand. Like a red-hot metal skewer, it sliced through the thick layer of oil. The mountain-shaking lizards, which were as large as a mountain, were easily split into two. In that moment of hesitation, the Lupus army rushed to within 50 m of the vibrating mountain army. Long Zhu completely did not expect the scene in front of him. He felt as though he had fallen into an ice cellar. His entire body was filled with a bone-chilling cold intent. If everything was planned, then the enemy's commander, how terrifying would he be? Bing did not make a move, but ordered a squad to go up and fight. The commander that was trapped in the formation was like a wild beast in a net. No matter how they struggled, they could not escape. Long Zhu suddenly bellowed, "Rush! Rush into the mechanical army!" That was their true assault, vibrating mountain charge. The vibrating mountain lizards that were sent flying smashed into the formation behind, and it was another mess. The army was in a mess. The vibrating mountain army had experienced many battles, but none of them were as desperate and strange as the one today. In front of them was a mess. Long Zhu raised his head, his eyes filled with shock. When did the enemy start to increase their speed? But at that moment, he already had no path of retreat other than rushing forward. He had no other choice. A light army actually effortlessly pierced through a heavy army. Chapter 440. Seems like this master of yours is usually not loved and respected by you guys. Sima Xiangshan said faintly. Kacha! Wang Yi let out a pitiful wail like a pig being butchered, his entire face distorted. The 4 bodyguards and a Maori and the other 3 were in a standoff, but both sides were attracted by the sudden battle and forgot to fight. At that moment, the 4 bodyguards heard Wang Ye's cry for help and immediately reacted without saying a word. They abandoned a Maori and the other 3 and ran towards Wang Yi. Suddenly, an intense energy undulation came out from the palace. How to shorten the recruit period, how to promote the potential and talented basic officers, etc. All these problems, he had spent countless of his blood and sweat in the past. In the midst of the chaos, the vibrating mountain army was slowly being cut up, dismembered into small pieces. Save me. Bing was already too lazy to look at the battlefield. He had already skipped over the battle and was thinking about the next few steps. A clear and crisp sound came out. A palm blocked Han Bingming's sword tip. Hearing that, Wang Yi, who was in extreme pain, could not take it anymore and immediately fainted. All right, Draco Constellation's army can only be like this. Han Bingning then saw the enemy clearly. It was actually a spirit general. Just that this spirit general was different from all the other spirit generals she had seen before, because it did not look like a human, but more like a mythical evil spirit. Its body was as thin as a match. Its head was huge. Its face was ugly. Its arms were extremely long, almost touching the ground. Its 10 fingers were like bird claws. Its nails were sharp and were jet black. The other 3 bodyguards also summoned their own spirit generals. Ling Su, who was on the roof, had his eyes explode, his face full of shock. What is that? How can there be such an ugly spirit general? Out of the 4, Han Bingning's light body technique was second only to Sima Xiangshan. In the blink of an eye, he had rushed behind the enemy, his cold sword unsheathed. Sima Xiangshan grabbed onto Wang Ye's neck and said faintly, "The battlefield is such a chaotic place, don't run around." Crane's fingers that were holding onto the sword had turned white. He lowered his head and muttered to himself, his tone gloomy. Ling Su was also shocked. The last time Bing displayed was a military general's superb control aura techniques, but today Bing did not even make a move and only commanded and dispatched orderly. It was like a brilliant chess player who didn't make any moves that showed off his abilities. Every move he made was very subtle, but after a few dozen moves, people would suddenly realize that he had already won. Bing was very calm. Such a victory, to him, was very normal. He was more concerned about the performance of the students. There were many reasons why he was transferred to the recruit camp. He was easy to talk to, he was young, etc. But the most important reason was that he was good at training soldiers. Ha ha, well said. Yeah, Sima Xiangshan is indeed treacherous. Ling Su's eyes lit up. Crane was expressionless. In their eyes, it is the same. They're even worse than before. These spirit generals, no, they can no longer be called spirit generals. They're the result of many spirit generals forcefully fusing together. That is why they are so deformed. Why do they become spirit generals? It is because their hearts are too unresigned, because their lives are too short, and they have unfulfilled wishes. Every spirit general is the martial artist's most persistent and most cherished wish. Even in death, they do not want to give up. Such a persistent belief should be respected and not be used, trampled on. Sima Xiangshan alone was able to easily settle the battle, causing Liang Xiao, who was an honest person, to be completely dumbstruck. But it was a pity the vibrating mountain army's counterattack was not as violent as he had imagined, and Bing was slightly regretful. If the vibrating mountain army's counterattack was more ferocious, the baptism of the recruits would be more effective, and many problems would be exposed more thoroughly. When the 4 of them heard Sima Xiangshan's words, their faces all changed. Forget about the 9 fingers. Just the one that was broken was enough to make the master hate them to the core. It was fine if the master died here, but if the master were to return alive, then their future days would definitely be very tragic. You say, if I break 9 of your respected masters, 10 of his fingers, and then return him to you, what are you going to do? You will definitely find a place where there is no one to kill him. Sigh, fighting and killing, it really makes things difficult. Suddenly a palm patted his shoulder, causing Crane to raise his head. Bang! The battle shocked everyone. After the completion of the division, he did not say a word. Other than the fatal mistakes made by the students, he did not even see the small mistakes. He was observing in the dark, observing the students who performed outstandingly. Little Crane, don't be sad, this kind of trash, all of them will be killed with one spear. People who do not even let off the dead, then let them be dead. Don't worry, we will help you. What made the 2 of them feel even more inconceivable was that Uncle Bing actually treated it as a training ground. Draco Constellation only had 1 saint and 4 divine dragon martial artists. With such strength, could they handle it? The more advantageous factor was the morale. The rookies' morale was high. Along the way, after digesting the gains from the battle, their strength would increase. But the Lupus Army's Andromeda battle gown, under the eyes of a saint, it would be difficult to display its usefulness. Sima Xiangshan had a stomach full of bad ideas. Long ago, when Wang Yi was running frantically, he had already noticed it. When Wang Yi opened his mouth to call for help, he was the first to move. His light body technique was originally exceptional and quietly appeared beside Wang Yi. At this time, the four bodyguards had just moved. What was the strategic significance of taking down Draco Constellation? And what kind of reactions would it cause? Hearing that, Ling Su's hair all stood. He opened his eyes wide and said in disbelief, This is too perverse. Spirit generals are truly different from poisonous insects. Bing was very satisfied with the battle. He did not expect the vibrating mountain army to appear. But just in case, he still brought Tang Yi's Lupus army to protect the completely new army. When they discovered the vibrating mountain army, Bing's spirit was roused, and he started a plan. Bing thought to himself. Crane's heart warmed. He calmed down. Seems like the vibrating mountain army entering Ursa Major constellation this time should be the doing of the clan Union in the dark. Seems like the clan Union also wants to fish in troubled waters and are restless. But since they met us, then they deserve to be unlucky. In the entire process, other than the Lupus army's assault, it gave people a dazzling and sharp feeling. The battle after that was not beautiful at all, to the point that the mechanical army led by Bing was clumsy, continuously making all sorts of mistakes. For example, the change in tactics. For example, the outflanking was not in place, etc., causing the entire battle to look extremely chaotic. And as a military general, they like to think about the next step in advance. Bing was considering if they should take the chance to kill their way into Draco Constellation. Draco Constellation's army was practically gone, and what was left was roughly the Saints. The four of them were in a dilemma and did not know what to do. Wang Yi was completely scared silly. His face was as white as paper. His mouth was but no sound came out. Spirit generals were formed from martial artists' martial spirits after they died, and thus they would retain the appearance of the living. All spirit generals were like that, and no one had ever heard of such a deformed and ugly spirit general in front of them. Using battle as a substitute for training, this was the method that he had fumbled out in the past. The intensity of the battle at that time was unimaginable today, although the Southern Cross Army had complete reserves, but they still faced the problem of lacking in manpower. Ding! The other three spirit generals, although they had different appearances, but they were deformed and ugly, and were all the same. In a short period of time, he had completed the entire battle plan. Such a terrifying military general. Crane sucked in a breath of cold air and could not help but praise. So Uncle Bing is actually so powerful. Sima Xiangshan did not care, and said to the four of them, Surrender for the sake of your master's life. By controlling the four of them, the entire battle was more or less over. Ling Su's killing intent soared. In truth, he did not want to expose the Sky Marshal Wolf Academy and the Mechanical Army so early, but to reach his requirements with conventional methods required a very long time. And time, to them, was the most important thing. Wang Ye's four bodyguards shouted with all their might. His heart was filled with fear. He was just a strategist. To let him move his mouth, to come up with some schemes, it was not a problem. With his weak strength in the chaotic battlefield, to be able to survive until now was a miracle. Han Bingning's heart trembled. It was her first time seeing such a deformed spirit general. Crane squinted his eyes and said coldly, Clan Union, I never thought that they would actually become more and more severe. Want to run? A Maori stared and rushed towards the four of them. A strange true power flowed along the sword tip and entered Han Bingning's meridians. Han Bingning snorted, releasing his true power. At the same time, an even more ferocious true power rushed over. There wasn't much that made people's eyes light up. In fact, it was somewhat ordinary. However, when the battlefield was divided into small pieces, people suddenly realized something. Clan Union? Ling Su was at a loss. Yes. Crane stared coldly at the four spirit generals in the field and said indifferently, Clan Union is a new powerhouse. They are formed by a group of small powerhouses. They have researched a very forbidden technique, and that is the devouring and merging of spirit generals. It is like raising poisonous insects to obtain stronger poisonous insects. They will place different kinds of poisonous insects together and let them fight and kill each other, devour each other, and finally nurture the strongest poisonous insect. Clan Union spirit generals are like that. Sima Xiangshan's movements were gentle as he broke one of Wang Ye's fingers. The figures suddenly split apart. Fighting was the best touchstone. The figure beside him flashed past. It was Han Bingning. How much confidence does he need? Wang Yi had already jumped down from the back of the vibrating mountain lizard when the situation was bad. At that time, Long Zhu and the rest did not have the time to care about him. And his luck was good. In such a chaotic situation, he was actually able to escape. But the battle had scared everyone silly, especially Wang Yi. Even Crane and Ling Su, who were standing on the roof of the palace. The two of them looked at the crisscrossing battlefield, saw the Lupus army that appeared out of nowhere, saw Long Zhu's dying counterattack, and saw how Bing easily cut and dismembered the vibrating mountain army. The four bodyguards' faces were ashen. "We surrender,"